This is Greg Pruitt, formerly of the Cleveland Browns, and you're listening to The Sports Fix.
Sports Fix listeners, like us on Facebook today. Facebook.com/The Sports Fix.
Hey guys, J-Rocc here from The Sports Fix, and we always talking about using our platform to try to help the world and the society we live in, and everywhere I go and everywhere we go, bullying is one of the biggest problems in today's society. There's nothing worse than any person, big or small, strong or weak, adult or child, feeling picked on, pushed around, vulnerable, and victimized at the hands of a bully. Change comes one person at a time, and my good friends at No Such Thing as a Bully are working on skills and techniques and ways that we can all change and make things better for everyone. Find out more at nosuchthingasabully.com.
Portions of the Sports Fix brought to you by Fantasy Jocks. Visit fantasyjocks.com, your fantasy sports superstore. Championship belts, rings, trophies, and more.
Live in Ohio, it's time to get your fix. The Sports Fix.
And we're back. As we said, back here, it's Friday, end of the week. No way we weren't getting back here, man. And look at just the short time that we were gone. Look at what happened while you were away. Look at all the things that happened here. Man, we got a lot of things to get into. Jonathan Knight's going to join me here pretty early on the show to get in on it. Mike Brandenberry's going to be here as well. We're going to rock and roll, get you set for the weekend, a huge weekend. I'm excited. Literally, we're going to, from this moment on, it doesn't stop for me, man. We're going to roll. We do the show. We got Cavaliers, got Game 3 and Game 4. I've got some wrestling going on this weekend. All kinds of goodness. I cannot wait to do that. But to do that first, we start here. And I am glad to be back with you guys here today. Off yesterday, back in the saddle again. Off and running. And here we go. If you guys are ready to do it, let's get rocking and rolling. Tons to get into today. We're talking Cavs. We're talking Tribe. We've got, as I said, JK, Mike Brandenberry, your calls and takes, so much more. We're going to roll and do the thing, so let's do it. Welcome in, my friends, to the Sports Fix. I am your host, the Big Daddy on the microphone, J-Rocc, Jerry Myers, with you guys each and every weekday here. We're live, noon Eastern, across the Sports Fix radio network. As you know, hey, you're probably listening to us live on maybe TuneIn's radio app worldwide, Spreaker, Mixler, their digital and mobile apps, on our home base, our website, thesportsfix.net. Thousands of you as well listening 24/7 around the world. Welcome in, everybody, on iHeartRadio, the world's largest internet radio provider, on iTunes, on Stitcher Radio, SoundCloud, all of the places, CarPlay, all the podcast sites, all the places that you download us, feed us, subscribe us, do the thing, however you get your fix. I say it all the time. Thank you guys so much for doing it, for being here, for being a part of the show. That is the most important part of all of this. This is us doing this. It's our whole crazy crew of people and you guys. So do the thing. Be a part of the show, whether it's on the phones. Phones will be limited today because we've got guests on and a ton of things to get into. But even when we're not taking live calls, the phones are still always open. Leave your take on the 24/7 hotline, 216-539-7535. 216-539-7535. The number to call, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You want to talk, hey, this weekend, give me some calls after the games. Let me know your thoughts. 216-539-7535. Hey, social media, instant response. Facebook and Twitter. Facebook.com/The Sports Fix, or just search for The Sports Fix on Facebook. Tweet with us at The Sports Fix CLE. Email us, thesportsfix@AOL.com. Again, Facebook.com/The Sports Fix. Tweet with us at The Sports Fix CLE. Email us, thesportsfix@AOL.com. Jonathan Knight, sportswriter extraordinaire. He's going to join me just about 10 minutes from now. So we'll do a little quickie opening segment here. We'll get things rolling, and then we'll get into the show. We'll get JK on, and we'll get this thing rolling downhill. But talking about, while we were away, tons of things to talk about. First off, the Tom Brady thing just continuing to get bigger and bigger. I'm watching and seeing all kinds of talking heads all over the place, as you guys are now. I mean, they're all saying, hey, 10, 12 game, maybe 16 game suspensions coming for Tom Brady. And you know what? I say slow the horse down a little bit, and I know some people are just dead set on believing that the Patriots are the worst people in the world and Tom Brady has been cheating the NFL forever and all of this. First off, I back all of you up to remember that when the footballs were right, the Patriots steamrolled the competition. That's all I'm going to say. That's all I'm going to say, man. It's just when, regardless of whatever you talk about with that specific game, after this whole football mumbo jumbo was settled, that was the part of the game where the Patriots dominated the Colts. So keep that in mind. But forget keeping that in mind. Keep the whole thing. Go read this report that people mention, but no, how many people actually go sit down and read? I'm telling you, you couldn't convict somebody in a court of law on a bunch of more probable and likely and perhaps believe. Yeah, come on, look at some of these terms that they're using here. It was a giant way of saying somebody monkeyed with some footballs, and we think this is what we figured out, but we can't exactly prove it, which is why we were very careful about what we said and how we said it, because since we can't prove some of these things, we don't want to be accused of libel or get sued for anything down the road or be found to be wrong. So we very carefully worded these things. Listen, I have no doubt in my mind that some people from the Patriots monkeyed here around, tried to get the footballs lower. It's no doubt in my mind that they know, hey, Tom Brady tells them, hey, I like it on the low end of what it is. And however, hey, listen, man, you say what you want about the Patriots and Bill Belichick, and I have no belief. There's no way that I believe that Tom Brady went and said, hey, go give me a bunch of illegal footballs that are going to get caught in them. That's the thing that people, and I can't believe I'm wasting time talking about this again. We did this months ago. But the part that people are missing on this is you act like the footballs were going to be teleported from the locker room to Tom Brady's hands, and they weren't going to go through more officials and more players from both teams, and more people weren't going to touch the football, and it wasn't going to be incredibly likely that somebody might go, this football feels a little flat. But no, they were just magically going to get beamed up Scotty all the way to Tom Brady, and he was going to be the only person that was going to touch these magic footballs. And there's some other things with the technicalities of the report. I saw this being pointed out, highlighted yesterday by one of the shows I was flipping through, and I saw about how 11 Patriots footballs were found to have different pressures or whatever, and 4 Colts footballs. But what they didn't mention in that is that they only tested 4 Colts footballs. So they only tested 4 Colts footballs, and all 4 of them were under the pressure that they were supposed to be. So it's not like the large preponderance of footballs that were monkeyed with were the Patriots balls. It was actually balls for both teams, but they only tested a smaller sample size of the Colts footballs. Again, all of this is ignoring the blatant fact that the officials, the people in charge of the game, touched the football before, during, and after every snap of every football game, man. And again, I think this is ridiculous, but I cannot believe that there are people calling for and even predicting that Tom Brady will be suspended any football games for this, let alone possibly an entire football season, man. I'm sorry. I think that's just ridiculous there. I do believe that somebody in there, obviously they know who the guys are that did monkey around with the footballs. And hey, to me, I equate that to, there's a lot of people that do things to try to help. So there's a lot of starstruck people out there, man, that think they're doing the right thing. There's a difference between knowing that Tom Brady likes the footballs at the minimum level and going even a little bit lower because I think I'm helping him out. That is not the same as that man saying, hey, I want you guys to deflate these footballs and make them illegal. Get out of here. And here we are still talking about this. But I just completely think that this is ludicrous that people are talking about suspending one of the true greats of the game over something as silly as this, especially when at the end of the day, the NFL did this. Why is nobody addressing the fact that this was not this wasn't a thing where the Patriots were caught with these footballs. This was an attempted sting operation by the NFL and the Colts. And to me, that's amazing that in the biggest game at that point of the season, you would allow things to intentionally be done in an attempt to run a sting operation on one of the teams. That's nuts. That's insanity right there. Think about that. You didn't say, hey, no, this is the championship game. We're going to make sure the footballs are right, and we're going to investigate this on our own. No, you did this little mini sting operation that ends up blowing up in your face, man. So there's a whole lot of egg on everybody's face, and everybody's running off and passing the buck. But you notice how nowhere in that report does it blatantly accuse Tom Brady of anything. They use these monkey terms. We talk about it all the time. When people in the media do that stuff. Well, that report did the same thing. That whole, we find it more likely or probable, using these terms because you don't dare accuse him of something that you can't prove that he did. And I think that is messed up, that the way people are looking at just certain things of this, and the fact that this whole thing blew up into this, and people are talking about suspending Tom Brady. I'm sorry. I know I've turned off every Patriots hater out there, every Tom Brady hater. Sorry. Some people hate greatness. I'm sorry. Some people in Cleveland don't like the fact that I like Michael Jordan. You know, I don't feel bad that our basketball team happened to be one of every other basketball team that was shorted by what they could have done by the greatest of all time. We weren't the only ones that were hurt by him. But anyways, I just think this is nuts. This whole thing is nuts. Speaking of stuff that's nuts, much less nuts, by the way, in a completely different direction, but man, blowing up on its own. How about, and I don't even know if I should make a joke about putting baby in the corner or not, but the unforethought, I don't know what the word, just not well thought out in-game entertainment by the Cavaliers with the video that, as you guys know, for those of you that don't, that has begun to go viral during Game 2. You know, the Cavs on the Qtron always do the in-game, different in-game videos and stuff. The one they did on the headband, you know, was really funny the other day about headband just waiting for whenever LeBron needs him again, and they had a talking headband and his wife and all of that stuff. It was funny. They do stuff like that all the time. Well, they tried to spoof that commercial that's going on TV, where that commercial spoofed Dirty Dancing and the dancing scene with Patrick Swayze and Jennifer Grey and the Time of My Life in the background. And the girl comes running, and the guy lifts her up, sees that she's wearing a Bulls shirt, tosses her off the side of the room, and then it gets worse from there. Listen, I actually, you guys know, I come from pro wrestling. I come from an sports entertainment background. So when I first saw it quickly after the game overnight, I can't lie. At first, my first instinct was, this is that overreaction. This is that stuff that happens. Everybody's being too sensitive. And I'm with some friends yesterday, and they're like, dude, watch it again. Watch it again now that you're removed a few hours. And we watch it again. And then I'm like, man, all right. When that voiceover hits, they kind of dig their own grave there. That's when it turns. Even the throwing part, listen, I was with it because you know how you depicted the landing. You could have done it differently. She could have landed on the couch. Anyways, up until that point, I'm like, okay, I see the thought and I'm with it. And then when that voiceover starts and says, you know what it's. We'll get into it with Jonathan Knight here in just a minute. But at that point, it goes from bad to worse, and then the ice bag. We're going to talk about all that. Let me hit this break here. When we come back, sports writer extraordinaire Jonathan Knight. He's joining me now. We'll be right back. We're going to talk about just that. Are you all in? You better be. You better be, because if you're not, oh no. But seriously, it went from bad to worse at that point. We're going to talk about that here. And the Cavaliers, Game 3, Game 4 this weekend. Browns draft. I want to see what JK thought about it and more. Sports writer extraordinaire Jonathan Knight coming up right after this. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Just beginning today's edition of the Sports Fix.
Crackle with life, right to
Get your fix.
Cause it's Friday, you ain't got no job, and you ain't got to do.
It's the Sports Fix. We'll be right back.
Hey guys, before we go to the break, I want to talk to you a little bit again about our good friends at Harry Buffalo North Olmsted, the UFC, the Ultimate Fighting Championships, some of the hottest fights in the world today. Each and every one of their huge events, Harry Buffalo is one of the few places in Northeast Ohio you can go there and watch each and every UFC fight at the Harry Buffalo. And let me tell you, I've been there. The people are out the door. They are to the rafters. It is one of the craziest environments for some UFC fights. Wing Mondays, they've got great deals on wings and drinks, and every day of the week there's a different special, a different deal. And don't forget the Bison Burger, the unbelievable. It is the combination of a fantastic burger and eating healthy combined into one unbelievable sandwich. You have got to get a Bison Burger while you're there. So whatever you're looking for, whatever day of the week, Monday through Friday, Saturday, Sundays, there's something for you at the Harry Buffalo North Olmsted, just outside Great Northern Mall. Check them out today. Harry Buffalo, join the herd.
Fantasy sports lovers, you put so much time, hard work, and effort into playing week to week that it quickly stops being a fantasy and starts getting real. And when the smoke clears, you want to show off those victories with a real prize.
I mean, a really real prize.
Nobody does that like Fantasy Jocks. The crew over at Fantasy Jocks have beautiful, high-quality, and heavy-duty championship belts, rings, trophies, and so much more for all your fantasy sports needs. There's literally only one place to go. FantasyJocks.com.
Here we go, bring it on in. It's time now. It's all city. We got to do it for them, dog. We got to do it for Cleveland. They're waiting on us. Define what we're about. Let's get it on.
Every single night, every single practice, every single game, we got to give it all we got. Because they're going to ride with us. Everything that we do on this floor, because of this city, we owe them. We're going to grind for this city. They're going to support us, man, but we got to give it all back to them. We get it done. The toughness that we have on the court is going to come from this city. Everybody, the whole city of Cleveland. That's what it's all about. It's time to bring them something special. Let's go. Bring it on in, everybody. Let's go. Hard work on 3. Together on 6. 1, 2, 3. 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3. 4, 5, 6. It's all us. Cleveland on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Hey everybody, this is Jerry the King Lawler from WWE, and you're listening to the Sports Fix.
Welcome back to the Sports Fix Live, getting right back into it. J-Rocc with you, going to the phones. My man, the sportswriter extraordinaire, Jonathan Knight, joining me. You guys keep it going on Facebook and Twitter, facebook.com/thesportsfix. Tweet with us at the Sports Fix CLE. I'm going to the phones. JK, my man, how you doing this afternoon?
I'm doing well, Jerry, and yourself?
Hey, I'm fantastic, man, and catching up. I was out of the office here yesterday, catching up, and, man, in the last 24 hours, all kinds of things to talk about. But right before, as you got in with us, right before the break, I was talking about, obviously, the Cavaliers tried to put baby in the corner. Seriously, the other day, man, I was telling the story before we went to break that when I first saw all the attention being brought to the Cavaliers video, the in-game video that they did, and maybe it's the wrestler in me. At first, I was only half watching it, and I said, man, people are blowing that out of proportion. I'm telling you, I missed the whole second half. I must have, because yesterday, a couple of friends and I are watching it again, and I'm like, all of a sudden, the voiceover, when that voiceover kicked in, it just changed the tone of the thing, man, and I go, oh, I wasn't listening when he said that. Yeah, that sounds bad. And then when she's on the couch, I'm like, oh, man, yeah, somebody approved this? Multiple people approved this, man. It just, I could see then where they went the wrong way, and I'm like, wow, man, how did that make it through?
Yeah, and I think I felt the same way, and I only saw it after there was a big hullabaloo about it, so I was inclined to be a little more tuned into that, and I think most people were. I think most people who have seen it at this point now are only seeing it after hearing about the controversy. But yeah, I mean, and that's my sense too. It's just like, whoa, yeah, that
you know
that
what,
should
though?
not have.
Let me jump in there real quick, because I was asking a buddy who was at the game, because of what you just said. I had the same. I was like, Yeah, but what did you think when you saw it? Did you see it during the game? He goes, oh, yes, I did. I said, come on, don't lie to me now, hindsight. And he said, Jerry, I swear, because I told him I was going to talk about it on the show. He said, I swear, I was looking up and I saw it and I said, wow, how did they do that? And he said, I swear I'm not saying it afterwards. He said, I thought it the moment I saw it in the building. So I said, okay, that's not hindsight. That's truthful response to what they saw. But anyways,
and the thing is, it would have been so easy to fix. It would have been so easy with just a couple of tweaks. You still could have had the exact same sentiments. I mean, just first and foremost, just switch the genders. Have the dude jumping and the lady going, or whatever. Yes. I mean, however implausible it may have been, I think that you have headed it off at the pass. It may still have been in poor taste, whatever, but you wouldn't have this whole domestic violence angle to it. I think that, just like doing that alone, I think this is not a story. And then with fixing the voiceover, just any number of really easy, small things that you make that tweak, and this is not a story. This is not a problem.
JK, when he says, don't make the same mistake she did, that's when I go, you couldn't have picked a better or a worse phrase to put right there, man, you know? And that's when I said, I missed it.
And having her, you know, wearing a different shirt at the end, this is about making your husband happy and giving up your own belief, or he will beat you. Just just lose that scene, and or switch the gender, and or lose the voiceover. Like any number of real easy fixes that didn't get. It's just amazing, that nobody brought it up, or that those who did were shouted down in this environment. I understand it's not the NFL, the NBA has not been plagued by all this domestic violence, but it is pro sports.
Oh yeah,
they're right down the street. It's just amazing that nobody thought of this or was unable to stop this from happening.
I mean, seriously, I'm with you. And I was just as simple as you just did. It took me 2 seconds to come up with a simple edit. I said, hey, why not just do the whole first half of the commercial? She comes running in, he picks her up, sees the shirt, puts her back down, and you cut to a scene that they're on opposite sides of the couch and they're not talking to each other now because he realizes that she's a Bulls fan, and they go, don't let this happen to you. Be all in. You know what I mean? And then, boom, you're done. But, and the Cavaliers definitely came out with an apology, as they should have. But, I mean, I'm not going to lie. When I first heard everybody complaining, I'm like, this is probably one of those things where somebody's trying to make – because it happens so much in today's society where people do take innocuous things and blow them up into something more than it is. And then I watched and said, no, the Cavs asked for it with this one, man. And again, the fact that there's so many levels of approval and that it got through makes you go, man, what? I mean, but then again, I mean, all joking aside, but this is more funny than that is that then again, on the same day, somebody had the bright idea for Sling Night too. So let's just leave that out there,
that's
man.
That's the funny thing. I feel like these two things kind of went together. I don't know what the timeline was, and one story kind of broke before the other, but it feels like that the two got kind of, the one story broke and the other idea died. Like they almost were kind of together, like they were going to complement one each other in a weird way, and that when this didn't go over well, then Sling Night, not so great. Not that Sling Night would have been a great idea,
bro.
Anyway, for a totally different set of reasons, but not a great day for the Cavs marketing department.
Had they done Sling Night, it would have gone down in history as Domestic Violence Night. I'm telling you, between that commercial and people coming out with slings, the message that would have been terrible. That would have just been absolutely awful there, man. I mean, they could have even done the same spot with just the mascots instead of a man and a woman, and then boom, you
another
eliminate.
Easy fix. I mean, any number of ways that anybody could have very easily fixed it, and it still could have been funny.
Yes.
And they just didn't. I don't know what happened. I don't know if they did it too fast.
The same commercial with just mascots is now funny because it's just a wolf man and a pirate guy or whatever they are. You know what I mean? Like it's just comedy. It's different. You could have done the exact spot. You wouldn't even have had to change anything if it was just Sir CC and the Chicago Bull guy or whatever. You know, and
tone deaf. Tone deaf was the description I had heard, and that's exactly what it is. It's not that they're evil or that anyone should be fired or that they're malicious or even incompetent, just tone deaf. And I think that's the best way to describe it.
You know what sucks is that between the football thing and because I had to talk about that and this now, which did need to be talked about, but here we are 25 minutes into the show and such great other things to talk about. And unfortunately, we've got to kind of mar the waters with all of this other stuff in the air. Game 2, Cavaliers came out and truly responded. I mean, exactly. I mean, seriously, if you go back and listen to Wednesday's show, that was almost to the T how I thought that game was going to go, from Tristan to LeBron and Kyrie and the way guys stepped up. And I'll tell you what, definitely showed the difference. And I think that anybody that thought the sky was falling after game 1 was insane. Look around the NBA. Every one of these series, the team split the first 2 games, and here they go into the crucial games 3 and 4. I mean, this is the good part of the playoffs here, and you're going to lose games, and then you're going to win games. It's going to be up and down. I couldn't believe how off the charts people went after the Cavs dropped that first game.
Well, yes, and I think that is the nature of the playoffs, I think, and we talked about this a couple of weeks ago. There's such a microscope, and there's, with that gap between games that you don't typically have in the regular season, that there's much more to talk about, and there's much more at stake, obviously. So I think even without Kevin Love and that sort of uncertainty going into the series, I think the Cavs dropped the first game of the series on their home court, and you instantly begin to panic, and that was going to happen anyway. But particularly with it being the first game without Kevin Love, the first game without J.R. Smith, all of those worst case scenarios dovetailed together, and then it ended in defeat. And so there was quite a bit of pressure, more pressure than the Cavs have had all year, quite frankly. For any particular game, there has never been more pressure than was on the Cavs on Wednesday night, and to their credit, they responded. So, but you hit on another good point with all of the series now having split these first 2 games. For as much attention and as much talk about the importance of home court advantage in the playoffs and blah blah, and it is important. I don't mean to poo-poo it, but I think it's important for maybe Game 7. It is less important over the course of the series. You are never going to see a series where the home team wins every game, particularly the deeper you go. These series every game is its own battle. You really, the home court advantage is not as big a deal as you think it is, and therefore not a huge thing when you lose it. When you lose home court advantage in the first game, you don't want to lose the first game. You don't want to lose any games, but you certainly don't want to lose a home game. You certainly don't want to lose the first game, so there's that panic there. But it's going to be a different series by the time it ends as it was when it started. So, yeah, I mean, it's going to be a long series one way or the other. Losing one game at home, losing that first game at home wasn't going to be the death knell. This was going to play out over the course of 2 weeks.
I mean, any championship team wins a game on the road. That's all there is to it. Any championship team can win a game on the road. But I'm telling you, I came out of Game 1, JK, earlier this week in a much more positive mood than most people, and here's why. And it played out a lot that way in Game 2. Chicago had their premium game in Game 1. The best that they can do is repeat Game 1 throughout this series. That is the best game the Bulls are going to play. That's the best they can play, with everybody hitting, the 3 main guys scoring over 20, grabbing boards, Paul Gasol being left open, all of that stuff. That was peak Bulls, the way they played. And the Cavaliers were far from their best, as we know. They had all the adjustments to make because they were the team missing players and off for 8 days, and yet they still almost won that game at the end. And to me, I came out of that very much feeling that the Cavaliers would make the few adjustments that they need to, and that, to me, that spoke much more positively for the Cavs, the way Game 1 played out, believe it or not, than most people thought. And I thought, boom, Game 2 showed a lot of that. And then the Cavaliers still have the bump of receiving J.R. Smith back here. They've been able to find some new lineups that work as well. I think that, in all honesty, things are looking quite well for the Cavaliers at this point.
And maybe in the long run, maybe it's better that they lost the first game. And maybe that was kind of a wake-up call, that it did kind of force them to intensify their approach and kind of hunker down a little bit and not think that, well, we got the first one, now we can just coast, and then you lose Game 2, and now you don't even have momentum going into Game 3 on the road. So maybe in the long run, maybe that's the best thing that could have happened. Who knows?
Yeah, I'm with you, man. And we'll see. Game 3, Game 4. I mean, this is going to be a big weekend. And I went ahead and said I think the Bulls are going to take one of these two. I think the series is coming back to Cleveland, tied at 2. And it wouldn't surprise me if it was tonight. But I'm very curious to see now, talk about the adjustments. I want to see the adjustments Chicago makes to readjust back to what the Cavs did in Game 2.
Yeah, and certainly if the Cavs can win one of these two and split in Chicago, boy, I would take that in a heartbeat, because I have a bad feeling going into this. I had a bad feeling going into this series. I said, after, with Love being out, I said Chicago would win this series in 6. And to this point, this is how I foresaw it happening. I saw them splitting the first 2 in Cleveland, the Bulls winning the next 2 in Chicago, the Cavs winning their last stand game in Game 5 in Cleveland, and then dropping Game 6. So that's how I saw it unfolding, and the first 2 at least have unfolded, if not game by game, how I thought it would go, but overall. So yeah, I mean, if the Cavs can come in, and really I think tonight is really kind of key. You again don't want to crank up that pressure cooker any more than you have to, and you do that by winning early, by winning the first game, which they didn't do. And now your first game on the road, if you can win that, that makes Sunday much easier. Now the pressure's off. If you lose tonight, you're down 2-1. You face the very realistic possibility of going down 3-1 with a hostile crowd on Sunday. That now, and when you get down 3-1, that's tough to come back from. So tonight comes again to sort of counter to counter the point that I was just saying about you not necessarily having to win every home game. For the Cavs now, this is something else. This becomes a very important game tonight, and but if they don't win tonight, they still have that chance to even it up on Sunday. If they don't, though, I think if they do lose both of these this weekend, they're in big trouble. I mean, they are. I cannot see them winning 3 in a row. It's possible, sure, but I would not put money down. The Cavs have to win one of these next 2 and come back to Cleveland tied at 2 in order to stay alive.
No, I agree with you. Absolutely, you don't want to lose both of them. I mean, as I said, I predicted they'd lose Game 3 and bounce back and win Game 4, and still, I had them winning 5 and 6 and taking this thing in 6. I really do think the way the first 2 games played out really make me feel good about the Cavaliers' chances in this series. I'm telling you, JK, because in Game 2, we saw the Cavaliers at a much better clip, but I still believe Game 1 was the best you're going to see out of the Chicago Bulls. The best they can do is repeat that performance, is what I'm saying. But here's the key, and it played out in Game 2. I don't know if you guys saw this stat, but Derrick Rose, when he's got multiple days to prepare in the playoffs, and when he's got 1 day in between games, is night and day. And we saw it between games 1 and 2, but in his career, he averages, I believe, it's nearly 10 points a game. I don't have the exact stat in front of me. It's about a 10% change in his shooting percentage. He's a much less effective player in the playoffs with only 1 day rest, and it was exactly the same. He was huge in Game 1, and he came up very small in Game 2. And for the remainder of this series, I believe they're going to stay on. There may be 1-2 day gap near the end if they want to try to line Game 7 up for a Sunday or something like that. But other than that, it's 1 day all the way through. And that's something to keep an eye on, because it's not just a 1 year thing. In his career, when he's had 1 day rest in the playoffs, he's been a much less effective player. And it was that way in Game 2. So keep that in mind.
Interesting. Again, the cavalcade of interesting yet useless trivia that comes up when you have an extra day off between games.
There you go. I love that stuff, because some of those I blow off, but some of them I go, damn, that's an interesting stat, and that was one that stuck with me. And I heard it before Game 2, and then he had a bad Game 2, and I go, well, son of a gun, man, he really was a different player. But I'll tell you what else made a difference is what David Blatt said about how they defended. I mean, he wanted to keep throwing fresh guys at Rose, and really it was a combination of guys. It was Shumpert, it was Delly. I mean, he was rotating guys so that you didn't have Derrick Rose just wearing one guy out.
Yeah, and I have no doubt that there is truth behind this, or there are factors behind that kind of statistic. Whether it's teams having a better chance to, or the Bulls rather having less of a chance to adjust to whatever defensive adjustments teams have made against Rose and others.
Yeah.
Or if it's his knees recovering, whatever it may be. it's interesting. It's something to watch, especially as you said. Now that we're going to have only one day between tonight's game, obviously, and then Sunday. So if that continues, then that may be something to keep an eye on. If he goes out and scores 50 in one of these games, then I think we can we can set that aside.
I mean, but I'll give you another one too. LeBron, when he needed to come up big, he came up in game 2. But statistically, so far, this is his poorest shooting postseason in nearly a decade. I think it was since maybe 2007 or 2008 there. One of those years with the Cavs was the last time he shot as poor of a percentage. And as you see in this series, he's, I think, 3 for 22 here from three-point or whatever so far in the postseason.
Well, you got to figure that's going to balance itself out, too. Some of these things, especially when you talk about shooting, if a series goes long or a postseason goes on long enough, there's too much talent there.
I don't want him shooting. I want him driving, JK. That's the thing. I don't want him shooting. I don't like watching LeBron James shoot jumpers. That drives me crazy. We dominated because he took it to the paint the other day, and you've got other guys to shoot, man. To me, I just feel like it's a waste of his talent when I watch LeBron settle for those long threes and those jumpers sometimes. I know he's doing it on purpose, and he's getting other guys involved and playing his game, and I get that. But, man, that just feels like a waste of his game when I watch him do that, and it's like you're letting the other team back into the game.
Yeah, and it feels a lot like where we've been before. We've talked about it before, that a lot of that, whenever the Cavs kind of slip into that, okay, there's 14 seconds left in the shot clock, LeBron's going to stand there for 12 seconds dribbling the ball and then chuck up a 24-foot shot. That feels like 2009, 2010. That feels like the trap that the Cavs would fall into, that there was nothing else for them to do. They weren't even trying to do anything else, or LeBron wasn't trying to do anything else, and we saw the consequences in the playoffs when it came down to it. LeBron's great when you need one basket on one possession, but when you're trying to keep a lead, a 5-point lead with 5 minutes to go, that's not the way to go about doing that. So I think that you've seen that even over the course of the regular season, or at least the second half of the regular season. We've seen that the Cavs there have been times where, the percentage play here is to just give the ball to LeBron and let him clear out, and they haven't done that. So, I would much rather than see him drive to the basket, kick it out to somebody, and they miss a jumper than him just stand there and just chuck it up.
And I'll tell you what doesn't remind me of any other LeBron, I will say this, is defensively. Man, this LeBron defensively in the playoffs is what I wanted to see the first time he was here. That's that. I equated it to Michael Jordan being able to put him on anybody for a 2 or 3 minute stretch and stop him if you needed to. Especially in game 1, he was all over the place. And the Cavs in general, no previous Cavs team of that last LeBron run can touch this one defensively. That's what they thrive on. They're sick defensively, JK, I'll tell you. I know you got to go.
And that's what they're going to need. That's how they're going to win.
Yes,
if they're going to win this series, that's how they're going to do it. They're not going to do it, especially, it was going to be the case anyway, but now, especially with Love out, they need to go to they need to use something else. They need to pull another trick out of their bag. They're not going to win this by shooting the lights out. They're not going to win this by out shooting you in threes or hitting 10 or 15 three-pointers in a game. They're going to win this through their defense. And in game 2, you got the sense that they may have gotten that may have sunk in a little bit. So we'll see. We'll see if they can, first of all, if they intend to keep it up, if they're really focused on really, really winning it through defense, and if the Bulls are able to adjust to prevent that from happening. That's what we'll see tonight.
Tristan was the man again. I predicted 15 and 12 when he started. He let me down on the points. He only got 5, but he got the dozen rebounds. Just like I said, he was huge. Man, he's a difference maker there. Hey, real quick, I know you got to go. Rapid fire. Thumbs up, thumbs down. What did you think of the Browns draft last week, man?
Well, in theory, I guess I have to say thumbs up. They did not do anything stupid, at least clearly stupid, as they did a year ago or in years past. That's always what you look for. Is always let's minimize the damage here. If you're going to make a dumb pick, just make a dumb pick. Don't trade any future picks to make a dumb pick. So hats off to them for that. I think in general, though, I think back to like in the 90s when Morgan Freeman was just becoming a big actor, that Morgan Freeman would be in a movie and like, boy, that movie doesn't look good, but Morgan Freeman's in it, so it's got to be good, and I'm willing to go see that. It's sort of the opposite with the Browns. Is like, that draft pick looks pretty good, but the Browns made it, so it probably isn't. Like, it's almost the reverse mentality. So I guess I applaud them for saying textbook and staying close to the vest and doing things that would appear to be smart, but I'm not sold. I think we need to wait at least 2 or 3 years to see if this is actually a good draft or not.
Oh, I understand that for sure, but I had good feelings coming out. I thought it was the first time forever that it felt like they had a plan and actually just stuck to it, whatever it is.
That's a fair point. I think last year they probably did have a plan and then threw it out the window because somebody wanted Manziel. Yes. That's how that felt. So you're right. I mean, that's a fair point.
That's what I've been saying, is that somebody, I don't know who he was, but let's just say somebody was locked in the closet, and they spent the whole draft just firing off a drill outside the door and going, "We're working on it, boss. We'll get you out of there in a minute. We're working on it." And that's how the weekend was spent, man. And do I even need to ask you where you're at with the Tribe? They are starting to hit the ball now. They are warming up a bit, and they are winning as many as they're losing now for the last week and a half. They're at least up to
that's one way to look at it. Well, if you told me Corey Kluber is going to start the season 0-5, I'd have pitched on fire.
Wow.
I mean, who would account for that?
Look at last night. Crazy. How does that happen? You start the game, you're down 4-0, and it's Kluber. I mean, he's just slightly off. He's not terribly off, but he's slightly off.
Yeah, and that's the thing. You know, I mean, for all the predictions, for as much for the Indians, for anyone else, we can think we have a beat on this team. We know what we're going to get. There may be some question marks, but we're like, okay, there are a couple things we can count on, and other things may not work out, but we can count on that. And everything we pointed to back in March that we thought we could count on has now been blown to hell. I mean, Kluber, the bullpen has been erratic, and that's a kind word. I think it's probably been worse than that. Other than maybe Bauer and Carrasco, maybe to some extent, the pitching has just been dreadful, and the offense has probably been about what we thought. I think now that you're right, they have leveled off a little bit. So as much as they have been disappointing, I don't know that we expected a whole lot more from them on the whole. It's mostly the pitching. So yeah, unless that turns around. And in a hurry. I think even as it is, I think with Kansas City and Detroit clearly showing that they're not going to be dropping off, the Indians may have already dug themselves too deep a hole to get all the way back out of. I think that with what's ahead of them, we may be able to get back up to 500, maybe above, but boy, that's going to be hard to make up that ground over the course of a season. You're just going to have to get red hot and stay there. Yeah. I mean, it's a shame that you just cripple your own season in the first 4 weeks, and then you're just running out the string. That's really a shame.
Yeah, I mean, Mike Brandenberry's going to kill me when he hears me say this, but if the Tribe wins tonight, they'll have the exact same 11-17 record that they had through 28 games last year. So
it's true, and this is apparently a trademark of a Terry Francona team. They don't at least this is 3 straight years now under Francona that the Indians have just been dreadful. The first 4 or 5 weeks, they've been terrible. And then they hit that point where this is right around the point that the last 2 years where they've leveled off. They haven't necessarily caught fire, but they have leveled off. And you're right. They, at least in the last week, they've played more or less 500. They don't necessarily look any better, but they've won a few games. So I guess you got to do that. You got to stop the bleeding before you can heal, and that's what the Indians need to do. And they need to start this weekend. I know they've been playing. They played Detroit twice. They've now played Kansas City twice. They've had some tough series. But now as well, okay, now we're playing Minnesota. You need to take 2 out of 3. You need to start winning these series against these lesser teams.
Absolutely. Beautiful weather. You got your first 1995 giveaway of the year coming up this weekend. You got the Twins.
Right.
Although the Twins are coming in winning 10 of their last 13, so they are coming in.
Oh, God, I didn't even know that. Oh, geez,
yes,
thanks. Yeah, I didn't even realize that. Shoot.
They're feeling good about themselves, and we'll get Bruce Chen out there for the first time this weekend. I'm interested in seeing that. But you're right. You got to start winning series. You got to start winning back-to-back games. They haven't won back-to-back games since games 2 and 3 in Houston. That's it, and that's the only series that they've won.
Speaks to the pitching. Again, it's all about the pitching. That's a telltale sign of a struggling pitching staff. When you cannot win back-to-back games, it's because the starting pitchers are letting you down. And that's the starting pitchers are the ones that keep you in games or can take you out of games in a hurry, and that's what's happening.
And they keep getting hit with the comeback inning for the other team instead of shutting it down. Yesterday, Kluber he gives up the 4. They fight all the way back, and then what happens? They give up a few more before they even get a chance to finish the comeback. It's already too little, too late, and you're like, it's I know one way to look at it is they're right there, and the other way to look at it is there's so much over here. I don't know.
Yeah,
man, but
it is a long season. I guess
I agree, and I agree
at least
with
for
that.
another couple of weeks. That argument's already getting stale. But yeah, if you hit Memorial Day and they are not at or above 500, then then it's like, wow.
See, and that was my prediction, was that they'll win two over 500 for the next 3 or 4 weeks, and that by the end of the month, just as you get Gomes back, they're playing 500 ball for the season. And if they're there, then relax. Everything's good at that point. If they're not, then, we'll see. JK, my man, a lot of stuff this weekend. There's Tribe Twins. There's a couple of basketball games. Going to be fun, man. You and I will catch up next week. Hopefully, we're done with the Bulls by the time you and I talk, but hopefully
that would be nice.
With us.
That would be nice.
I don't know. We'll see. But you have a good week and enjoy it all, and we'll talk next week, my friend.
Same to you, buddy. Take care.
You got it. Everybody hates Cleveland, of course. One of the places that you can find didthetribewinlastnight.com. Another, the sportswriter extraordinaire, Jonathan Knight, and every Friday, well, most Fridays, here on the Sports Fix doing the thing with us. I'm going to take a break, get you some news, get back, and we'll have Mike Brandenberry from the aforementioned didthetribewinlastnight.com coming up next, talking some Cavs, talking some Tribe, and all that and more coming up after the news here with Mike Brandenberry next on the Sports Fix. There we go, if I can get the words out of my mouth.
The Sports Fix, your choice for intelligent talk.
That was wonderful.
Bravo!
I loved that.
Oh, it was great.
Intelligent talk.
Well, it was pretty good.
Well, it wasn't bad.
Well, there were parts of it that weren't very good, though.
It could have been a lot better.
I didn't really like it.
These guys must be on the wrong station.
It was pretty terrible.
It was bad.
It was awful.
It was terrible.
Get him away!
Hey, boo!
Boo! The Sports Fix.
Sports Fix listeners, do you tweet? So do we. So tweet with us 24/7 at the Sports Fix CLE.
How to be a great dad in 15 seconds. Bike ride, go fish, walk in the park, phone call, milkshake, play catch, picnic, fly a kite, tell jokes, laugh, talk, read a story, tell a story, bumper cars, swing set, bowling, pillow fight, cut loose, stay tight. Whew. Because the smallest moments can have the biggest impact on a child's life. Take time to be a dad today. Call 877-4DAD-411 or visit fatherhood.gov. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
Have you gotten your copy of Cleveland's Finest yet? Highlighting the best moments, players, and media members in Cleveland sports history? In-depth personal interviews with some of the top names in Cleveland sports fill the pages of this incredible book. Cleveland's Finest by Vince McKee is this year's must-have book for every Cleveland sports fan. Available now at Amazon.com. Get your copy today.
Business owners and professionals, do you want to take your business, your product, your team, your event to the next level? You want to advertise right here with the Sports Fix. Our listeners are among the most loyal listeners, terrestrial or internet. The Sports Fix universe is not only the radio show, but tens of thousands of fans on Facebook and Twitter. Email me, Jerry Myers, thesportsfix at AOL.com. That's thesportsfix at AOL.com. And let me help you swing for the fences and hit it out of the park right here on the Sports Fix.
Portions of the Sports Fix brought to you by Harry Buffalo. Harry Buffalo, join the herd.
News break.
Good morning, I'm Bob Picozzi. We'll come down to the eye and feel test. That's how Clippers coach Doc Rivers explains Chris Paul's status for Game 3 against the Rockets tonight in the NBA Western semifinals. Paul missed the first 2 games with a sprained hamstring. The series is tied at 1. Houston center Dwight Howard expects the Clippers to be a much better team at home.
At this point, it's win or go home. And got to continue to play hard, continue to play through whatever. You know, it's going to be tough out there every single night. Every possession counts.
You can see the Rockets-Clippers game tonight, 10:30 Eastern time on ESPN, immediately preceded by the Cavaliers and Bulls at 8 o'clock Eastern. Patrick Kane had a goal and an assist last night in a 4-3 Blackhawks win in Minnesota. So Chicago completes a 4-game sweep in the Stanley Cup Western semifinals. Hearing today on Mike and Mike, Tom Brady's agent Don Yee said the wording in the Ted Wells report, more probable than not, leaves it open for the NFL to not punish the Patriots quarterback for his role in Deflategate. Second round of the Players' Championship, the leaders at 6 under par. Charlie Hoffman through 10, Sergio Garcia through 7. Tiger Woods is 1 over through 6.
Nothing feels as good as a job done right. When it comes to cleaning up, Quickie Bulldozer brand push brooms are always the right call. Lightweight yet durable, they can handle all your cleanup needs. Look for the Quickie Bulldozer brand at Lowe's.
You're listening to the Sports Fix.
Any way you want it, it's the way you need it. Any way you want it. She loves to laugh.
Welcome back to the Sports Fix Live. J-Rocc back with you. Mike Brandenberry going to join me here in just a moment from didthetryWinLastNight.com. Man, you hear it during the news break. I mean, we're dealing with it here in Cleveland all around. I mean, it's all cliche to say, it's win or go home and all that, but everybody's hit with the injuries at this point, and they all are big. I mean, look at the Cavs, obviously, with Kevin Love. And here, even though you get J.R. Smith back today, just moments ago from David Blatt, obviously hopeful that they can get, matter of fact, those are the exact words they used, that Shump will be able to go tonight and not be limited by that groin pull from the other day. But you never know how that's going to go. So even as you get one back, you may possibly have another. But it's far from just the Cavs. I mean, look at the Wizards. Their entire course of their playoff run and their championship hopes may have completely be altered here. I mean, here they upset Atlanta in Game 1. I made the pick. I thought the Wiz was going to be the team waiting for the winner of the Cavs and the Bulls in the finals. And here, John Wall, what's he got? 5 breaks or displacements there in his hand. His hand's so swollen they can't even figure out how long he'll be out or if they can do something for him to play. Look at the difference without John Wall in that series, the way Atlanta was able to play. I mean, he's such a difference maker for them, like a Kyrie Irving or LeBron. More like Kyrie than LeBron for the Cavs. But I mean, and Chris Paul, he gave so much in that Clippers final game of that series against the Spurs. We talk about dragging that leg up and down the court like a champ, but at what cost? Because here he is extremely hobbled, and will he even be able to play in this series? I mean, Blake Griffin's trying to step up, but as you see, it's not like they're playing. None of these teams are bums at this point. There's a reason that every series is tied after 2, because this is the good part of the playoffs. But man, I mean, it's attrition. Remember Chicago? Nobody gave them any sympathy. They lost Derrick Rose in the middle of the playoff run a couple of years ago. So it is what it is. Hopefully the Cavs will be able to have Shump out there tonight, but it'll be good, most definitely, getting J.R. Smith back in there. We'll talk some Cavs here. Let's talk Cavs. Let's talk some Indians. Let's do all of that. Let's get Mike Brandenberry in on the conversation. My man from didthetryWinLastNight.com. Mike, hey, man, all in. No jokes aside, man. Everybody's playing hurt. How you feeling today?
It is a grind, Jerry. That's all I was thinking the whole time you were talking about the playoffs. It's a grind. My buddy that I watch almost every playoff game with, I told him going into this series, I said, stop talking about who they play next and stop talking about, if they advance to the finals and this and that, just worry about today. It's a grind. Just grind it out, win the day, survive for another day, and worry about tomorrow when you get there. But it really is. I mean, for all these teams at this point, like you said, people are breaking down left and right, and just grind it out one day at a time, and that's what the Cavs need to do too.
Absolutely, and we saw the bounce back from Game 1 to Game 2. I expect a similar reversal of fortunes today in Chicago's favor, to be totally honest. I'm on record as saying I'll be happy with the split coming out of here. I think Game 3 could quite possibly go, and not necessarily as much like Game 1, but I definitely think that, hey, man, you're talking about one of the best coaches in the NBA there in Tom Thibodeau, and he's played LeBron James teams for how many years in a row now. They're going to adjust back to the Cavs, and the Cavaliers, I think they're kind of similar to Game 1 in even though it's a good way. You say, okay, you're getting J.R. Smith back, but that same maneuvering around of pieces again, and that it's a little bit of a all it takes is that. All it takes is just a slight being off kilter to lose a playoff game. And I think that being game 1 in Chicago and that atmosphere and the Cavs readjusting their lineup again, that could be all it takes for Chicago to grab game 3, and then it'll be on to the Cavs to readjust and take game 4. I'll be perfectly fine if this thing comes back to Cleveland tied at 2, and that's what I expect.
Yeah, I agree with a lot of what you just said there. To me, I'm not so sure that that Game 3 is advantage Chicago. Maybe a little bit how you sound, but I would be thrilled if I said all along before the series started. If the Cavs could survive the first 2 and split, and they could go to Chicago and split, you make it a 3-game series, and you have 2 at the Q, and you take your chances. And If I'm throwing $1 down today, my dollar's still on that scenario to happen. But I think tonight is a key game in that I really feel like after game 2, and maybe this is really the difference. Is I think I've said this before, but I've never really been impressed with the Bulls all year. And you think as crazy as this Cavs season has gone, it's almost like breaking it up into like quarters now. But the Cavs beat the Bulls in the first quarter of their season when they were playing Sean Marion 30 minutes a night. They beat them in the middle part of the year when they were acquiring parts and pieces and getting, LeBron was back from injury. I'm not sure that Shumpert was back yet. They were kind of in that transition phase, and they beat them when they were at their best too. This spring, and so the Bulls have never really impressed me. I have a term I always say that they're the Nintendo team. Each player individually has like that rating of like 95 out of 100, but together it just doesn't seem like it ever fits. And I think, to me, tonight is a key game because I feel like the Cavs adjusted to life without Kevin Love, and how to attack and take advantage of the Bulls. I think David Blatt tried to keep Tristan and Mozgov kind of separate, and playing off of one another or using each other's time, and that was an epic disaster in game 1. And I think they realized that they're going to have to get minutes out of guys that they're not accustomed to, but maybe it's better to get 10 minutes out of Kendrick Perkins than it is to try and get 10 minutes out of Mike Miller at this point. And
for sure,
I think if you can do those things, I think for all those reasons, I think there's a chance. Like I said, I still think, you get a split in Chicago and you make it a 3-game series, but I do think that there's a possibility that they go to Chicago and they win tonight, and they have momentum on their side. And this is a weird Bulls team that's never put it together. You don't have to look very far to find somebody to tell you that Tom Thibodeau is likely going to get fired, almost win or lose, based on this series. I can see them starting to pack it in if they fall behind in this series. And one of the things you said, I guess the only thing I would disagree with is you said, Tom Thibodeau has, played LeBron for years. Yeah, and he's never beat him. So,
I agree. I agree
with
that.
He hasn't
LeBron's got his
adjusted that
number.
well because he keeps getting beat by him.
Oh, I agree with that. I disagree about the Bulls, man. I don't agree that they're a bunch of great individuals. I think they're better as a team than they are individually. Individually, to me, there's only a couple that stand out. I think that it's the way they play as a team. When they're on, they're a good team, man. But I'll go back to what I said about Game 1. I think Game 1 is peak Bulls. That is as good as the Bulls are going to play. So even if the Cavaliers didn't adjust and change anything, that's where you need to match, and the Cavs can match that level. They didn't in Game 1, but to me,
and I feel like that was one of the worst games that the Cavs have played.
Right, absolutely.
Since LeBron came back from his injury.
Brother, that's why I came out of Game 1 feeling good instead of some people, just being all, wow, we're done, because that was the best of the Bulls against just an awful effort by the Cavs. And I'm like, hey, the Bulls could not turn it up and do better to me than what they did in Game 1. If they come out tonight locked in, they're going to play like they did in Game 1. But that's fine. The Cavaliers showed that they were and the fact they almost won that initial game with two different 15-point spurts by the Bulls and just shooting themselves in the foot. I just said it with JK. I came out of Game 1 with a different mindset than a lot of other people, man, and the way they adjusted in Game 2. I just simply think that there's a possibility. See, I believe if they win Game 3, then they quite possibly win them both in Chicago. I thought Game 3 was an opportunity for Chicago to grab it back, and then the Cavs will take Game 4. But then I figured they take 5 and 6. I had the Cavs finishing this thing in Chicago in Game 6, but I just thought more likely to me it's that Chicago grabs Game 3, because if they don't, like you said, then the Cavs have a realistic shot at sweeping the weekend.
Yeah, I'm on the same page with you. And I felt the same way coming out of Game 1. I mean, you never want to lose Game 1, especially on your home court. You're always in that situation where if you don't win Game 2, then you're in big trouble. So, you never want to lose. But I wasn't heading for the 480 bridge after Game 1 or anything because I did feel like the Caps played one of their worst games since January. And they had a chance to win until about a minute and a half to go in the game. And I guess that kind of goes back to my statement of that's, I guess, in part why I'm not that impressed. I've never been that impressed with the Bulls. I mean, in fairness, when the Cavs play their A game, and I mean maybe their A game with all their pieces, including Kevin Love, when the Cavs play their A game, I don't think there's very many teams, Chicago Bulls included, that are going to have a chance to win with less than 2 minutes to go. And I just don't think that the Bulls are on the same level as the Cavs. And I think even without Kevin Love, I think, after Game 2, you kind of have a formula, you have a rotation of what works. I mean, I think, it's important that you play Tristan and Mozgov together, and, you're going to have to lean on Perkins for, 10, 12 minutes a night, and you're going to have to take some chances. I mean, we live in a world where, Matthew Dellavedova's been out there, has probably played 50 meaningful minutes in 2 games, and, that's what happens when you lose one of your star players. But
I love Della.
You're going to have to take some of those chances. But I'm good with the chances that they're taking right now. I'll ride. At this point, I'll ride or die with Deli and Kendrick over Sean Marion and Mike Miller if those are my choices.
You're listening to the Sports Fix. J-Rocc, Mike Brandenberry here as we cross over into Hour 2. We're talking some Cavs and Bulls, NBA playoffs as we hit this crucial next set of games, Game 3 and Game 4, of course, over this weekend in Chicago. You guys keep the conversation going on Facebook and Twitter. Facebook.com/The Sports Fix, or just search for The Sports Fix on Facebook. Tweet with us at The Sports Fix, CLE. And as always, you can email us, thesportsfix@AOL.com. And I'll tell you, hey, you know what, Cavaliers fans? Hey, while we're talking about the Cavaliers, I just laugh at this because noted Cavaliers hater Bill Simmons, I just noticed this news. Did you see that? Parting ways.
Yeah.
ESPN here. Words
tough
starting
break
to come
for
out.
old Billy
Poor
today.
guy. Poor guy, man. I'll tell you, him and his, he's got the Grantland Porsche. By the way, I just wanted to mention this because we were off the air yesterday, but for those of you guys that listen, totally off topic, but saying Grantland popped it into my head, and my ADD, I'll forget it if I don't mention it now. But Dan Wismar mentioned, and maybe you should check this out too, Mike, because you're into you can appreciate good long-form journalism and that kind of stuff, and there was a good expose on Deadspin, and Dan Wismar sent me the link to it about the quote-unquote black Grantland and Jason Whitlock and the failure of that site to launch after a couple of years here. It's a great piece, man. Really fascinating stuff on something that had the potential to be something totally different, and then obviously it hasn't turned into. But it's just, man, I'm a big fan of those. I'm a big fan of long-form journalism. We always joke that people just want to read it in a paragraph nowadays, man. They want to be done with it. But I can dig it. And there's been a couple of good ones, but that was one here this week that was a good one. There was another one too on ESPN, the Ted Williams one. I don't know if you saw that, from Wright Thompson, about his daughter and some of the behind the scenes things of a guy like Ted Williams. Another good one. But always love those good pieces of long form journalism. You know, some of the stuff you find on didthetribewinlastnight.com, places like that. But I don't know if you've seen either of those articles, but there's some good stuff out there this week.
I have not, but I saw the Ted Williams story, but I honestly, I saw the picture, and it was one of those times where I didn't have time to stop and read it, and I just kept going. So I haven't seen either of them. But yeah, I like stuff like that too, and obviously you gotta have the time to kind of set aside to read some of it. But I saw, not to get too far off track, but I would say, Bill Simmons is a guy who I'm not a big fan of his now. I used to be a huge fan, Jerry. I'll tell you, this is terrible to say for some of my former employers, but on Friday afternoons in the fall, I used to sit at my desk in my first teaching job and hit refresh, just waiting for Bill Simmons' football picks for the weekend to come out.
Really?
And that was something that I looked forward to all the time. And I've never been a Red Sox fan, but I think, love or hate the Red Sox or the Yankees or really any team, but when you read a guy who is a genuine fan of their sport or of their team, and you can feel that in their writing. I mean, I just remember the bloody sock game and the year before with the Aaron Boone home run.
Yeah.
And some of those stories were some of the, both good and bad for Bill Simmons were some of the best things that I've ever read that I still remember. And I think, not to make him sound like some great trendsetter, but I think there's a lot of people who, have started blogging because of, his original sports guy, website. And I could probably do the rest of this show, in my opinion, on how he and ESPN have changed, and both changed for the worse in recent years. And I'm not sorry to see him go. The only thing would be better is if he could somehow take ESPN with him and they could just go away, in my opinion.
No, I totally hear you, man. It amazes me because obviously, we're big sports guys and I do this 5 days a week, so immerse ourselves in that. But man, I was just talking about this recently with a friend of mine because we're sitting there talking and he's got Sports Center on in the background. And I go, man, I'm amazed at how much I go elsewhere for anything when I need to look or just want to entertain myself, educate myself, anything. How much I can't sit through stuff on ESPN anymore. And I'm not even exaggerating this point. Like, I used to truly enjoy some of the, so much, especially the secondary programming and stuff. Like, when I was a kid, one of my favorite shows to watch on Sunday mornings was the Sports Reporters, where they'd have the writers.
I was just talking about this in my class this morning.
Really? Are you serious?
Yeah,
See, man, we're right there.
I finished my senior class
man.
with Tuesdays with Maury every year, and we just started reading it. And so I was talking about Mitch Albom and talking about the Sports Reporters, and I said that was a show I used to really like, and now I don't think I've watched it in years.
Same here. But I mean, that just speaks the whole station in general. I mean, I'm watching this Sports Center, and look, I can appreciate updated, graphics and cool looking studios. Like, that stuff's cool. Hey, look like you're in the future because you want to get their attention. Like, I'm all about HD sets, and I do enjoy some of the things that they can add to the broadcast, like as far as, two guys having a basketball court just transported underneath them, through CGI, and they can do, those kind of things that can give you like a different look at the game I like. But in general, I can't sit through an episode of Sports Center. I can't sit through 5 minutes of it because I can't leave it on at night because I'll wake up in the morning and I'll hear that endless drone just over and over. I just don't like the way they do it anymore. I don't like it. It's a clown show, man. And I'm not one of these old fuddy-duddies, because I'll watch, I think some of the stuff, what's that, the Fox one, some of their programs are better. Some of them follow the same formula, but I'm with you about that. In general, I can't even it's not like the good old days of Stuart Scott. And, like, even some people didn't like him when he started because he was too off the beaten path. I can go that direction a little bit, but to me, it's just not, I can't even sit through a half an hour episode of SportsCenter. Can't do it.
Yeah, I completely agree. I like I said, I could do the rest of the show on
Baseball
ESPN.
Tonight
but
used to be great, I mean, all of those shows used to be better than what they are now. You're so right about that.
I mean, Sunday nights with, Dan Patrick and Keith Olbermann, were great. I mean, it was almost something that you tuned in for, and it didn't matter what the storyline was. And I think anymore ESPN is more about trying to make their own storylines than they are
themselves
reporting
the news. Yep.
Reporting the stories that are out there. I mean, I feel like, just from a Cleveland point of view, the Kevin Love and David Blatt dramas of this basketball season are contrived and produced, in large portion by ESPN, because if there isn't some kind of problem, then there's nothing for them to talk about. And, I just believe that the national media is always convinced that someone is unhappy in Cleveland and wants to leave. So the idea is that the best player in the world came back to Cleveland by choice, and then someone else requested to be traded here. That's off the script. They're not used to that. So, I mean, it's like a soap opera, somebody has to fall down an elevator shaft every Friday to get you to tune back in on Monday. And I just feel like ESPN is trying to always have that drama unfold. Just report, that's what makes sports great, is it makes its own plot. You don't have to make it up. And that's when I get really tired of ESPN, because you don't have to make the storylines up for me.
I agree. That's one of the biggest. That's the best way to sum it up right there. I had somebody tell me one time that they believe in the national media. They only want two things for the Cavs. They either want them to fail spectacularly so they can say that's what you get for going back to Cleveland, or they want them to win a championship so LeBron can hurry up and go play somewhere else and he can get the whole Cleveland thing out of his system. I'm like, damn, man. Like, in no scenario can he stay here, succeed here, and continue to stay here. Like, he's either here to fail or just hurry up and win Cleveland a championship so you can go play for the Knicks or something like that. And I'm like, man, we can't win for losing here. I swear to God.
Oh, for sure. I mean, that guy's not said anything about leaving since the day he's got here. And I can tell you right now, if you want to hit fast forward on your life remote control, when we get to 2016, I mean, you can bank on people talking about him going somewhere else.
Brother, if these
create
Cavs,
whatever you want to happen in between now and then. They can be two-time defending NBA champs going for a three-peat, or they can get swept in the next 3 games by Chicago and bounced out of this series and struggle next year. I mean, whatever the scenario is, somebody's going to be talking about him leaving for greener pastures. So, I mean, I wouldn't disagree with that.
Not just somebody and not just someday. If the Cavaliers do not finish this playoff run with an NBA championship, from the day they lose their, matter of fact, from probably the day or two before their final game up until July the 10th or whatever that date is that LeBron will have to do his contract or whatever, you will hear 24/7 nonstop. Everybody will have a source. LeBron will have personally told Stephen A. Smith that, and Chris Broussard this, and Brian Windhorst will know for a fact that not only, by the time it's done, not only is LeBron leaving, but he's convinced Kevin Love to go with him, and he's going to have Kyrie Irving force a trade. Watch how crazy things will get if when we get to that scenario just between the end of the Cavs season and July. And even if they win, I could see that ridiculous. Well, LeBron, now he's got to decide if he wants to come back, because he already did it, and he did it quicker than he thought. So now he's going, hey, what are my options. It's going to be ridiculous. And like you said, it's because they create their own news. It's why the easiest thing to show you that is that new, it's not new, it's a year or two old, but that ticker on the side of SportsCenter now where they show you what's coming up every 5 seconds, so you don't go anywhere, because we're talking, if you look, you'll see LeBron in 3 different places on the same screen, because it'll be like, next we're talking about LeBron, then we're talking about Peyton Manning, then we're coming back to LeBron, then we're talking about Tom Brady, and that shows you their ADD. It's like, don't go anywhere, give us 30 seconds and we'll make up something about LeBron, and then here comes Tom Brady, and look, there's a deflated football, and hey, here's LeBron again. It's ridiculous, man.
Yeah, deflated footballs. You can add that to a list of ridiculous things that ESPN talks about too.
Dude,
what a total. I mean, and I've said on your show that I'm a Patriots fan, and I'm not about to go like Patriots defender on this, okay? But you want to talk about the greatest waste of, I mean, literally, and pun intended here, the greatest waste of air you can ever have is talking about this, because I think it's foolish on all angles. First of all, anything that the Patriots did with intent is like absolutely foolish to me. I heard Brady's numbers were like 49 of 64 in the game and a half after, the balls were removed. So it's not like there was any competitive advantage there.
After they were even.
I'm pretty sure, Russell Wilson would have still thrown that interception no matter what the PSI was on the football in the Super Bowl. So in that regard, it's ridiculous. But, to me, this is no different than like linemen that have, put oil on their jersey to, slip a defender, or receivers who have too much stickum on their gloves. And I mean, it's just so overplayed. And
Brother?
If I'm ever in a job where someone comes to me in May and says, you need to talk about the PSI of a football, that's a sign to me that I should probably look for a new job.
Brother, I hear you. I absolutely. Number one, I think it's ridiculous, dude. This is what I was talking about, man. Last night, I'm seeing talking heads say, "Will it be 10 games, 12 games, a full season suspension for Tom Brady?" And I'm like, you have got to be kidding me, right? Like, is this even being talked about? So anyways, I agree with all the points you made. And here's the best part is I don't know how many of you have been inside of an NFL locker room. They all look the same size on TV, which is about 3 inches tall. Until you can show me locker rooms that aren't full of guys dripping with human growth hormone, I see worse egregious breaking of the rules going on in the NFL than somebody that likes their footballs with 2 pounds of pressure per whatever, man. Who cares? It's so ridiculous. But I cannot believe. Could you imagine just think about that. And it's because people have their whatever about the Patriots and Belichick and Brady and anybody that wins there has to be some reason why they're winning or whatever. But this is one of the faces of your game. But look at how, here's the thing, is that there's nothing that they can say to accuse him of doing anything. They have released a report that uses could you imagine going to court and trying to get somebody thrown in jail by saying, we believe there's a high likelihood of probability that he knew about this, and that those words will get the judge to go, case dismissed, come back to me when you have some evidence. Yet this man is being,
I can barely get a kid of detention in my school with that kind of that kind of vernacular. Yeah. He probably knew what someone else did wrong.
Maybe there's a probability that he possibly knew or didn't know about it. Like, come on. And here's the best part, and we're wasting time talking about it, but here's the best part is, since day one, I've said this. I don't care who thinks who cheated. You guys are skipping from A to Z here because somebody must have believed that these footballs would be magically transported from the locker room to Tom Brady's hands without passing through every official that's part of the game, the one that puts the ball down on the ground in between every play. I mean, Tom Brady, to intentionally have this done, would have had to have believed that nobody else was going to touch these footballs and figure it out. I mean, come on. I mean, how many people touch the football between the locker room and the game, and every official and half the players, and you know what I mean? Come on. But he just said, you know what? I'm going to get away with this. Nobody's ever thought to do this. It's so stupid. It just gives them something to talk about over and over. And now they were able to have a report, and they can talk about a report that at the end of the day says nothing. And I find it amazing that people are talking about suspending the MVP of the Super Bowl, one of the greatest players in the history of his era of the game, over this.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I'm also not one to make excuses or justify cheating or anything by saying, well, everyone does it. But I'm pretty confident that everyone probably does this, or some shade of, rounding your corners a little bit. Like I said, too much stick 'em on your gloves, or whatever it is. You know why I think the Colts intercepted that pass and thought that maybe that ball didn't have a lot of air in it, is because they're probably doing the same thing. So they knew what a ball without a lot of air in it felt like.
I agree, man. At the end of the day, to me, like you say, if you're a baseball player, if you like to put pine tar on your bat, and the clubhouse guy says, I'm going to put some extra pine tar on, Carlos Santana's bat today, and then he doesn't know, and the ump checks it. Is Carlos Santana an egregious cheater, or did somebody just try to give him an advantage that he didn't ask for? Because I really do believe that the locker room people screwed with the footballs. Point is that it has nothing, and at the end of the day, they probably do it all the time, and the extreme cold temperatures just took their attempt to make the footballs minimum and took them below the minimum and got everybody busted. But at the end of the day, I cannot believe it. And I can't believe it doesn't, none of it matters, because in the half of the game where the real footballs were used, the Patriots steamrolled the Indianapolis Colts. That's the part that nullifies the whole thing, Mike, is that they just wiped the floor with them, man.
Right. Maybe it was a close game because of the deflated footballs. We'll never know. Maybe Tom Brady was struggling because
That's
of it.
it, man. Maybe he was going back to the huddle like, damn, man, these footballs are too soft for me, man.
Yeah.
What's going on, man?
I just can't get my hand on these things.
Just threw an interception. You notice he didn't throw any interceptions when the footballs were back to their regular place. He wasn't doing nothing but throwing touchdowns then. Oh, man. Anyways,
we should suspend the Colts on that.
That's
logic.
it. I mean, and the best part is that the NFL tried to sting. That's the thing. They set up their game to be played unfairly, Mike. I don't think anybody talks about that point. That would be like if baseball thought that Albert Bell was corking his bat, so they intentionally planted cork bats in his locker room and let him go to the plate with them and let him hit a home run that changed the score of the game so that they could catch him with it. But at the same time, they affected the integrity of that game, whereas what they should have done was the minute they found out, confiscated the bats and then suspended the guy. But instead, they let him go into the game knowing that he was cheating so that they could catch him. That's basically what the NFL did here with this, and they affected the integrity of their championship game like a bunch of idiots.
Yeah, the biggest thing that I've learned out of all of this is that the NFL is a $9 billion with a B, $9 billion industry, and the teams are still responsible for providing and bringing their own footballs.
Yeah, think about that, man.
Could the league splurge for a couple balls on their own for their AFC championship game?
Yeah, each team provides a certain number of footballs.
Do they shake $100 bill out of their couch cushion and show up with a couple footballs?
Man. Everybody shows up for the Little League game. Hey, we got 9 balls over here, Coach. I got my 9 balls. All right, man, we're ready to play some baseball. Gotta love it. Except the difference is that league, is asking everybody for donations, and the NFL, as you said, $9 billion. All right, Mike. Hey, let's circle back before we're done into what you do best, even though they're not doing what they do best. Although, at least moderately, mediocre since the last time we talked. Let's talk a little bit of the Indians here. Is last night, JK and I were talking about it at the beginning. Here again, another missed opportunity to just win back-to-back games. They've just continued to, tread water, win one. Matter of fact, I think the last 10 have been straight win-loss, 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 back and forth. Although, at least offensively, I do think some of the changes to the lineup appear to perhaps be timing with the warming of the weather to where offensively, maybe, the Indians get things going, but what does it matter if at the same time the pitching is going? The one thing you thought you could lean on, that's what JK and I were remarking on the most, is that the couple of bedrocks that you thought you could at least balance on while everything else is off kilter, they're the ones giving you trouble too.
Yeah, I in my mind, nothing has changed. That's the sign of a team that's not very good, is when you're inconsistent all the time. I was just thinking this was the best Indians talk that we had in a long time because we hadn't talked about them.
Yeah, but, I knew it.
But I was thinking, as I was trying to think before calling you today, what it was we were going to talk about them that we haven't already said. And the biggest thing that I've thought, and maybe I'm turning the tables on you. I'm turning into the guy with the questions. But, I would say first, at what point or when do we all agree that it's not early anymore? Are we past it's early phase? I mean, I know some people say Memorial Day.
June 1st.
Some people say 40 games. But, I mean, I know I'm past the it's early phase because, at least for the Indians, I'm past the it's early phase because most of their problems are the same problems that they had a year ago. But, I mean, when is it not early anymore, and when will people not be, ridiculed for being hard on this team?
To me, I'm one of those, 40-game guys. June 1st or so is usually when I think you can get a real barometer of where your team is, to be honest with you. That's usually how I look every season. If the Indians were 17-10 now instead of the other way around, I would still be saying the same thing. I mean, we've gone both ways before, and, I understand everything that you're saying, and then there is no magic wand of this team, man. I mean, if they're going to get better, it's just going to be by playing better and digging themselves out of this seriously. But I'm with you. They're inconsistent. I mean, all the problems continue to stay out there. But, I mean, as far as being early, to me, without using the cliche, that's generally how I look at the season here. And I know I said this to JK, and I said Mike is going to kill me for saying this, but if they win tonight, they have the exact same record that they had through 28 games last year. And as we know,
and you know what that got them last year? Nothing.
I know.
Gary.
It's
going to get them exactly the same thing this year.
I know, Mike.
I mean, what is their record? If they win tonight, how does that compare to their record in 2004? Because it's going to take them all to the same place, which is home in October. I mean, you're right. I mean, that's silly. I always think, in 2011 they were 30-15, and they finished 81-81. What your record is on a certain day, I think is excusing bad play or getting too excited about good play. But I think one thing that you said, that not to make a bad situation even worse, but one of the things that you said is if they're going to dig out of this, they just have to play better. And I completely agree with you, and that scares me to death because, first of all, to me, I guess I don't look at this team in a vacuum of just having played 27 games because their problems are the same problems that they had last year. But I also think if you look at it, if all contracts were non-guaranteed, or if everything was equal, the guys that you would kindly go into the clubhouse and excuse today, if you could, those guys aren't going anywhere. I mean, it's not like, well, if they don't play better at the end of 2015, we'll be free of them. I mean, Michael Bourne is, it was 2 months ago, we heard how he was in the best shape of his life, and he worked with, some trainer in Houston, and he was ready to go. And, now he looks like a shadow of, 2012 Michael Bourne that the Indians were excited to sign. And he's not going to get younger. And on top of it, he's signed through next year. And God forbid he has an option for 2017. I mean, I can't see that option getting exercised. It's incentive based on plate appearances. But, I mean, he's not going away. Nick Swisher, I mean, even I won't be critical of him after having only played 2 games. But, if he comes out and he struggles again, I mean, he's not going away either. I mean, David Murphy, I keep waiting for the day that they're going to cut ties with him. It could be this weekend to get Bruce Chen on the roster. But
let me jump in.
At what
jump in
point?
With you here, because I'm right. You're right on something. Before you go past that, where you're talking about those guys there, Michael Bourne, Wismar, Dan and I were talking the other day, and I said, man, I can't wait to get Mike in on this and get his thoughts, because we were bouncing that around. Now, up until the past few weeks, I would agree with what you just said, that he's not going anywhere. And I'm not talking about tomorrow or anything, but look at the change in because, look, the Indians, especially Terry Francona, they take a long time to make a lot of these moves, as we know. Terry Francona said, hey, I like to think about it. We talked about how long it took him to move Michael Bourne out of the leadoff spot. But very quickly, it went from, as you said, Michael Bourne's training with the track guy. And, hey, man, I had high expectations for Michael Bourne because of those things, man. Hey, listen, I understand that every team tells you everything, but I can also tell you that I can personally sit here every day of my life for the last year and tell you how I'm training harder than I ever have in my life, and it's 100% legit, and I'm a million times the athlete that I was just a year ago. So I mean, I can appreciate.
Yeah, me too. And neither one of us can play center field.
But I agree with that. No, what I'm saying is I can appreciate when a guy says that. I mean, obviously, it's not until you see the results that you can see, you know what I mean? But so yes, right. I did dig the fact that anybody that puts in the work, I get behind that, because not everybody does that at that level. It didn't work out, but look how quickly
and I agree with you in the moves with Bourne, but there's a
but let me keep going. No. With Bourne,
just moving him down in the lineup and cutting ties and eating his salary.
That's where I'm going, Mike, because what I'm saying is very quickly, after years of sticking with this, it has gone from we're with him and he's in the best shape ever to he's no longer the leadoff hitter. 5 days later, he's no longer playing against lefties, and we got to see if he can dig out of this thing. All I'm saying is that shows me a very radical shift quickly in the thinking, to where I wonder if, as you get down the stretch this year, if things stay par for the course. I mean, yeah, you've got to eat the money. It's like you and I talk about. You're going to pay the guy no matter what. But I can't believe that the Indians would keep that albatross going if they've already begun to change their thinking on it. I just can see them saying, you know what, if we got to pay, whatever. I don't know if we're talking trade, what, but he will not. I don't believe they'll just stubbornly stick him out there. Just because you got to pay him doesn't mean you have to play him.
Well, I agree with your logic 100%, and I would react the same way. I think there's a long way to go from where they are to where we're talking about. I think that's a conversation we'll be having in October. Okay. If this team goes as bad as it looks, if they win 74 games, say, and Michael Bourne hits 215 for the season, we'll be having the conversation of what do they do with him and should they eat his salary. I would be in that boat with you to say, you've already lost the money. I mean, you're not getting the product that you're paying for. So you can run him back out there again for another season of 215 or eat it and move on, because Tyler Holt or Tyler Naquin or James Ramsey will give you the same production or better for the league minimum. I agree with all of that. My only hitch in that is the Indians have never eaten salary, and you ended by saying they won't just keep doing it. Well, they did with Travis Hafner. Why wouldn't they do it again?
Well,
I mean, to me, it's
I
the
hear
same.
you, but they've got a lot. Well, I mean, as we talk about building this core, and I understand that some of it is cost-effective, but over the next couple of seasons, that cost-effective continues to evolve as these contracts that they're signing guys to become bigger and bigger over the next few seasons, to where that changes that thought process a bit too. I know what you're saying, though, but I mean, I don't know. I mean, see, that's a scary precipice to think about where things could go at that point. But
I mean, and that's kind of where I was going. Is if the Indians, at a certain point, this is where I started to say, not to make a bad situation sound worse.
Yeah.
But the Indians are off to a bad start. But if this bad start continues, if this bad start becomes a bad season, if you look ahead to 2016, I mean, the guys that you'd want to move off this roster are destined to come back, and if they aren't willing to eat salary, I mean, what's going to change? I mean, this roster, I mean, you know, I'm one that has been critical of them in that they didn't make changes last winter to improve their defense, to improve their anemic up and down offense. I mean, those problems are the ones that they had a year ago and they still have now, and the reason is because, you know, 90% of the guys involved are the same characters that were involved last year. Well, you know, if you fast forward, they're all under contract. You know, that's the good and the bad, I guess, to establishing a core is, you know, the thing about having a core is they're going to be there year after year, and if they're not playing well, they're still going to be there year after year. And I mean, if this season continues to go bad, you know, when we get to the trade deadline, I can't see the Indians getting any of these guys out of town, even if they eat their salary. And, you know, I can't see a team wanting them because there's nothing there productivity-wise. And, I mean, if Michael Bourne hits 200 for the season, or even a large portion, I mean, no one's going to want him in July because he's not making their team better. And no one, you know, I just see a situation where they're going to be faced with two options. You either run him out there every day and just let him keep hitting 200 for your team, or you cut him and you pay him his full salary to go hit 200 on somebody else's team. And the only thing is, the Indians have never done that before.
I hear you. I definitely hear you on that. Let's talk. I know this is tough, man, but let's try to look at a few bright spots at least. What do you think about the changes in the lineup?
You have a few?
I mean, I do offensively, yeah. I mean, they have begun to open up as the weather's begun to open up. I think some of the changes in the lineup are because of that. I mean, I think, you know, the changes at the top specifically. I like the idea of Santana being up earlier. I think we even talked about this a few weeks ago when you're having trouble getting some offense going, moving a guy up there that has, and I even said if he was any faster, I'd bet the guy lead off, but at least he's going to see a ton of pitches for the rest of your guys, and he's going to set the table. He's going to get some walks. He's going to get on base and give Brantley and some of those other guys a chance. So with Kipnis filling in there, then Santana, I mean, I think that's changed the dynamic of the lineup a little bit, and we have seen, in the last 2 weeks, about a 3-run difference offensively. Even if you take that 13-run game out, it's still a decent improvement.
Yeah, for sure. And I think, you know, obviously getting Bourne out of the leadoff spot is a huge, you know, positive to the top of the lineup. You know, Jason Kipnis to me is a developing. He's not a developing question mark. He's a question mark that I think needs to continue to develop to see if he is good in that role or if this is just a hot streak for him. And in my mind,
it's nice.
You know, he had one great month in 2013, and he's been quite mediocre for most of his career. But you know, if he puts it together like he has the last week and a half, you know, that's a great start to the lineup. And you know, the way Santana has operated, I think it's great to get him into that 2 hole. I mean, the one thing that you can count on offensively in the last couple years is Michael Brantley, and so you have to give yourself the best opportunity to score runs when your best hitter gets up there, and getting Santana in the 2 hole so that he gets on base in front of Michael Brantley, just makes sense at this point, and I think it's far overdue to make that move. But I'll be interested while we're discussing rays of light. I'll be interested to see a month from now, how do the Indians handle when Yan Gomes returns? Because to me, in some ways it's a perfect fit, in other ways it's not. But since they've moved Santana to the second spot, now you're kind of looking for a good 4-hole hitter, someone to hit behind Brantley. I feel like it's not going to be very long, and we're going to be talking about the fact that he doesn't have a lot of protection behind him. To me, Yan Gomes is that guy. If you can plug him in there, you kind of break up your lefties there, where you could go Brantley, Gomes, and then Moss, and then maybe you started to build a quality top half of a lineup, and then you fill in your Swishers, Rayburns, Chisenhalls from there. But if you remember back a couple years ago, when they first put Santana in the 4-hole, they talked about how difficult it was for him to catch and to hit in the middle of the order and all of that was involved. Suddenly, I don't think that'll be an issue this time around with Gomes, because he's just a better player than Santana was. But I'll be interested to see if they want to take that leap with him, maybe even just coming off of injury, if they're willing to take that leap.
For sure, and I see that. And that, again, I understand this is not to put a quick balm over all of the Indians' troubles, but those are things that I look at when I say, okay, if they can clean up some other things. But as soon as it doesn't do you any good to clean up a hole if you spring another one. It's like the old cartoon. You run out of arms to reach and plug holes before all of a sudden, it's leaking all over the place. That's the thing that scares you. But I mean, offensively, some of the things you talked about, if you can, stick with it, get Gomes back, put him in the middle of that. Rayburn, you mentioned him, and I'm very tentative on whether he can hold on with this too, because as we know, we saw 2 different Ryan Rayburns in the past 2 seasons, so which way this one was going to go was going to be key. But you gotta like what you've seen here before. I mean, at least all of these early small samples, but again, you've got to be encouraged with what you've seen there. Brandon Moss too, I mean, for the ups and downs, I mean, what's he at, about 240 or so, but he's got 5 home runs, 21 RBIs early on. We talked about how that's key, his contribution there. And he talked about, I even saw a little bit in the Plain Dealer, the quotes talking about the advantages, and this goes back to what we said about Santana being up in there, continuing to get guys on base for these guys, but also to work these guys out. Kipnis is doing a good job of it, and Santana seeing a ton of these guys' pitches. By the time the 3rd and 4th batters are getting up, they've seen everything that these guys have got to throw out there right away.
Yeah, and when the Indians score runs, that's really one of their keys. And when they work at bats, and I mean, we could do a show on what's a good at bat and what's a bad at bat. And the Indians have a lot of bad at bats on nights that they score, one or 2 runs. And I don't just mean a bad at bat is grounding out, but whether you can hit behind the runner, move the runner over, do you try to be productive in scoring a run, or are you just up there flailing away? If you want, to see examples, the king of the bad at bat was Asdrubal Cabrera, because nobody was better at getting to the plate after the hitter in front of them had drawn a walk and swing at the first pitch to ground into a double play.
Yes, he was.
And that's a prime example of a bad at bat right there. And the guys at the top of the order right now are taking good at bats. And like you said, someone like Moss, if you're hitting in the 4th or the 5th spot, you make guys work. The more you make the pitcher work, no matter how good they are, Jerry, they're going to make a mistake. And that was one thing that I wrote about early this week was how when the Indians' defense plays poorly, how much more stress it's put on the pitcher. And I just looked at Sunday afternoon when Carlos Santana ran that guy back from first base all the way to third and didn't get an out. It basically, it opened the floodgates to that entire inning, and there was no air charged, and all those runs were earned. But anybody that was watching knew that was a poor play, and that forced Trevor Bauer to throw another 15 to 20 pitches, and it caused a mistake that resulted in a grand slam. One thing leads to the next, and the same with their offense. If you can force the opposition to throw more pitches, if you're getting good at bats at the top of the order, then obviously it becomes much easier to take advantage of a mistake.
I agree, 150%. Mike Brandenberry from didthetribewinlasttonight.com. I guess I don't know. This one's one that has a long-form answer, so I guess I'm just curious, with whatever you want to say. But, I mean, Corey Kluber, just throw that out there. And I'm one of those guys that we just did this the other day. His statistical breakdown from last year to this year was very identical, even with a different one-loss record. However, I said this earlier with JK, I mean, there's something slightly off. I mean, there's not just the lack of production from the Indians when he pitches. I don't think it's the end. It's not. I don't believe he's going from Cy Young to the bottom of the barrel overnight, But I think I heard, was it yesterday? It's the worst post-Cy Young start for a guy record-wise since, I think, Zach Greinke in the early 2000s or whatnot. So, he's, now 7 straight winless starts for him. I mean, where are you at with the early struggles of Corey Kluber? I think Gomes has a lot to do with it. I think so.
Yeah, I mean, wins in themselves are a flawed stat. I mean, he pitched several good games early on. I mean, he took the loss of the first game of the year. He pitched a great game. So, wins and losses are somewhat of a flawed stat for sure at this point. But certainly there's some things wrong with him. I would say it's a combination of several things. First of all, I think run support enters in some regard. When you feel like you have to be perfect, every pitch has a little bit more pressure on it. I'm not sure how many pitches Corey Kluber would honestly admit with, truth serum he's been able to throw this year free and easy, because I don't think there's been as many. And certainly when things struggle, confidence comes into play. I'm sure he's not as confident when he walks to the mound, yesterday as he was, when he walked to the mound in August and September. And to be honest, where I think, some people have to come to grips with is, I don't think Corey Kluber is as good as he was last year, and I don't think he's as bad as he is right now. I think he's a good pitcher. I don't think he's a great pitcher. I think when Corey Kluber's career is over in 2020 whatever, we'll probably look at 2014 and say, that was his career year. Man, that guy was lights out. And the guy that I have somewhat, not in stuff, not the kind of stuff that he has, they're different pitchers on the mound, but in terms of what you get out of them at the end of the year, when you look at their stats and the kind of pitcher that they are, he reminds me a lot of Charles Nagy in that, Charles Nagy would give you 200 innings. He'll show up every 5th day. He'll be healthy. And, there's a good handful or more than a handful of pitchers in the league that you would rather have over Charles Nagy. But on any given day, he'll give you a shot to win. I mean, let's be honest with ourselves. You would have taken Mike Mussina every year over Charles Nagy. But if you had them matched up for a day, you'd give yourself a shot to win with Charles Nagy too. And that's kind of what I feel like Corey Kluber is. He's not one of the 5 best pitchers in the American League. But for any one day, you'll take your chances against any of those guys with him, and he's still better than most. I've had this argument with people, and they get upset like I'm putting him down. I'm like, that still makes him like one of the 10 to 15 best pitchers in the league. Like calm down. But I think I think his struggles right now are emphasized more. One, of course, because it's the beginning of the year, but two, because he's probably coming off of his two best months, definitely the two best months of his career in August and September so far. But for all we know, they might be the two best months of his career if he pitches for 10 more years.
And that makes a lot of sense too, man. I'm with you. I think a little higher of him than what you, but I'm with you. He's definitely not.
There's no shame in being Charles Nagy.
No, absolutely
that's why
not.
I say. People get fired up when I say that. I'm like,
no.
There's a long list of retired big leaguers that would like to have had the career that Charles Nagy did.
I think that's a great example. Except I think he's Charles Nagy with the ability to have a couple of peak years and perhaps be that great a few times during his career. But, you see that a lot where sometimes guys can, a lot of times they'll have the up and then the a little lesser. That's what I mean is I think that he could perhaps reach that level again, but it wouldn't be the day in, day out. You know what I mean? That type of thing, But I think you can look back and go, as you said, that was his career run. I think when it's done, there'll maybe be 2 or 3 stretches where you go, he was never as good as he was there, and there, But I think we're on the same page. And you're right, Charles Nagy is no slouch to be compared to at all. At the end of the day, you can do a lot worse.
Sure.
I'll tell you what, man. This is another one that can go a long way. I just was going to mention this with you real quick because it's bugging me, and I think you and I are in the same place with the PEDs and the steroids and the game over the years and stuff. But man, am I the only person? Maybe the general public just does not have enough knowledge of performance-enhancing drugs. But why does it seem to me that a lot of the general public looks at a guy like ARod and all this resurgence talk? Do people not realize that when you spend a decade and a half using performance-enhancing drugs and you stop using them, you don't go back to being the natural ball player that you were before? You are a completely genetically changed, re-enhanced individual that just happens to not be currently using those substances, but most steroid users maintain 70+% of the advantage. It's called muscle memory. It stays there. Yet I'm seeing all these articles like this is the clean, the old man ARod who's hitting the fountain of youth, and I'm not buying this garbage narrative at all. He is a man whose entire musculature and physique is built on a decade plus of steroid use, and any great athlete can maintain that level even when they're off after that much advantage. I'm not buying the feel-good story at all.
Yeah, I'll agree with every single word you said, and I'll take it a step farther. This is a guy who's done steroids for 10 years, and every day he's ever done steroids, he's told us that he wasn't until he got caught.
How do you know he's
telling
not?
us that he's clean now, and we're supposed to believe him. How do you know that he's clean?
Thank you.
The one thing I've learned in 15 years of baseball PEDs is that there's always a scientist out there making something that they don't test for. So, if I was going to pick anyone to try something new that they're not testing for, it would be the guy who has been doing them for a decade and admittedly has never failed a drug test with them.
Mike, I read 2 different editorials about an hour before we went on the air today. It's what made me want to bring this up. One of them literally talked about how ARod beat the Yankees with this whole bonus scenario where they're not going to pay him his bonus for passing Willie Mays. How ARod beat the Yankees by being so professional that now people feel sorry for him not getting his money. I want to meet any of these people that feel sorry for that blatant cheater not getting his $6 million bonus after he's already ripped off the game of baseball for a couple $100 million along the way.
Yeah, no kidding. I'll say an extra prayer for ARod to continue to take his great moral high road so he can make more money because the poor fella needs it.
But do you think that my analogy is right? Do you think that the general public, the general sports fan, believes that a player is only enhanced by using steroids when they're actively using them? I don't think people realize that.
Yeah, I do. I think you're absolutely right. I think the average person who has never had reason to take a performance enhancer. I don't think they fully understand its ramifications, and until you see it in a continuous basis, I don't think you can really fully grasp it. And the best thing I can tell you is this winter I was cleaning out old stuff and found boxes of baseball cards that I had, and I was sorting through to see if there was any hidden gem in there that maybe I had overlooked the previous 100 times I had looked through. And I found an ARod card, and it wasn't like a rookie card, but it was from his Seattle days, let's say 2000-ish.
And weighed 190 pounds.
Yeah, I mean, he looks like he probably weighs as much as one of his legs do.
Bro,
today.
It's like Sammy Sosa. Those pictures of him when he was with the White Sox, when he was, when he had the curly hair, he had the Jerry curl going, and he weighed about 115 pounds, and then he's walking around in a Cubs uniform like, Mark McGwire, and I'm like, come on, man.
Yeah, I mean, what people don't realize is that, it's not magic, and the magic doesn't wear off and you just go back to being mortal overnight. I mean, it helps create and build muscle. It does it unfairly, and you can maintain, you said, up to 70%, by doing it the right way. But getting to that point is what the cheating was, and I certainly don't have any way of knowing, but I think it's hilarious the amount of people that assume he's doing it clean now. Why?
Yep.
I agree. I don't know that he's taken an at bat in his career at the big league level that's been clean.
It just came out in this last winter, and all this testimony and all this stuff with that suspension, that he's taking the gummy bears and popping all these indetectable things. Get out of here. But even if you believe, here, the best example to sum up what we said is if Mike Brandenberry here wants to bench press and he sits down and he says that I can only do 125 pounds, if he does a cycle of steroids when he's at his peak, he may be able to get that thing up to, let's just say, a 300-pound bench press. When he gets off steroids, he'll go back down to benching 225 again. But guess what? When he started, he was only benching 125. So even now that he's off, he's still added a truckload of strength and muscle to his body that he can continue to work with well after he stopped using the dangerous substance. So everything that you're seeing is a great natural athlete built by a decade and a half of drug use, and this is the end result. So there is nothing redeeming, gratifying, or making you feel good about ARod's story. And I just can't believe that's a narrative that's starting to pick up some steam around the country, brother.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's kind of back to the same thing. When Jason Giambi won Comeback Player of the Year, and they could never really say what he came back from. It's the same thing. I mean, and ARod's the next one. I mean, I want to see if anyone has the audacity to vote for him for that.
I'll bet you that's coming. We're going to have some stuff to talk about, Mike. We had a long conversation today, but you just hit it. How much? I can already hear it now, man. ARod for Comeback Player of the Year. And they'll give it to him, and then they'll open the doors to I'm telling you, man. Barry Bonds is sitting around going, damn, I should have just let him suspend me, man. I'd be in the Hall of Fame already, man. How's this working out for ARod like this, man? Anyways, Mike Brandenberry, my man.
We'll see. I don't think ARod's ever getting in the Hall of Fame unless he buys a ticket.
Well, then again, look, though, man. A year and a half ago, I was one of those guys that said ARod would never play again. So he's already gone further than I thought he would, and I never would have thought people would be calling him a comeback, a hero, a feel-good story, any of that stuff, and I'm starting to see it. So what kind of world do we live in, man?
Right.
Mike, what are you guys working on this week? Anything special? Did the Tribe win last night?
We got some good 95 stories coming along, and right now we're kind of hoping that the Indians turn some things around, and then we have some positive vibes to write about here soon.
All right. Well, they're taking on the Twins this weekend. We'll see Bruce Chen for the first time. We'll see if that stuff at AAA is a mirage or if he can bring it up here. And it'd be nice to win a series here this weekend at home. First 95.
We do actually, Jerry, when you mentioned Bruce Chen, we have an interview with Bruce Chen that will actually post before his start on Saturday. So look for that.
Go. Make sure you guys get that. Check it out as well. Great stuff. They'll be out this weekend. Games 3 and 4 for the Cavs this weekend. Mike, by the time you and I talk, this series will either be over or it's going to be at about 0 dark 30, man. It's going to be in an important place by the time we talk next week.
Well, I hope that it's over, but I have a good feeling that we're going to be at 0 dark 30.
Oh, I'm with it, man. Let's do it, baby. It's going to be some fun this week. Let's see if the Indians, too, can take advantage of coming back home. Couple of series here, good weather. Maybe they can go ahead and win their first couple of series since Houston. That would be nice. You got to start baby steps, baby. You got to start with some baby steps. Mike, my man, have a great weekend. Enjoy it, a great week, and we'll catch up next Thursday.
You too. Go Cavs.
You got it. Go Cavs, baby. Go Cavs, go Indians, all of that. And make sure you guys go bookmark didthetribewinlastnight.com and check him out every day. Mike's got some great stuff, his whole crew over there. We're going to take a break, final break of the day, come back, wrap this bad boy up when we come back here on the Sports Fix.
And now, a very special announcement from the Sports Fix.
Black bears weigh between 200 and 500 pounds. Brown bears weigh between 300 and over 1,000 pounds. Black bears run away from you. Brown bears run at you. When attacked by a bear, simply lie still on the ground and cover your face and head with your hands. When the bear is finished batting you around and mauling you, contact the U.S. Forest Service.
And that was a message from the Sports Fix.
Guys, want to take just a second as we head into this break and remind you about the official business printing source of the Sports Fix, our friends at Signs and Ship. Signs and Ship, I'm telling you, Chris and Pam, they've taken care of me since day one, and they can do the same for you. Whether you're a small business that's already been established and you're looking to grow to that next level and expand your business, or perhaps you've got an idea that you just know is going to be a great business and you need to figure out how to brand it and how to promote it and put it out there, Signs and Ship is the place for you. If you need a logo, they can create one for you. They have a fantastic graphic designer. Business cards, signs, banners, yard signs, mobile advertising, anything you can think of that you need to promote your business, they've got it at Signs and Ship. The best thing about them, too, is each of their locations, whether it's the home base here in Elyria, Ohio that I work with, or their spots in Virginia, Florida, and Pennsylvania, it's all local sourced. Very important to me because we all understand that small business is the lifeblood of the community. So check them out, signsandship.com, or call Chris and Pam today, 440-323-6060, the home office in Elyria, Ohio. Signs and Ship, quality printing at affordable prices.
It's the Sports Fix. We'll be right back.
No football? No problem at Harry Buffalo North Olmsted. From their awesome Wing Mondays to every single Cavaliers and Buckeye Hoops games in full HD.
Tyree supposed to D, goes inside, teardrops it home right down Euclid.
That's way up in there for two.
The excitement never stops. Every day of the week brings a different set of food and amazing drink specials.
And now,
fans, Harry Buffalo North Olmsted is the home for every UFC pay-per-view live on the big screens.
Let's get it all!
And let's not forget their mouth-watering trademark, the Bison Burger.
They sure are good.
Nobody does bison like Harry Buffalo. The perfect combination of healthy and delicious.
Hey there, eat up, y'all. You's as good church-going folk. Y'all deserve a little treat.
What are you waiting for? Get to Harry Buffalo, just outside Great Northern Mall today. Harry Buffalo. Join the herd.
Hi, this is Dean Chenoth, head coach of Cleveland's Lake Erie Monsters, and you're listening to the Sports Fix.
Welcome back to the Sports Fix, final segment of the day. Hell, final segment of the week here. J-Rocc back with you, getting ready to roll on. You know what? Before I go on, I'm going to go to you guys. I've got a call here in the queue. It'll be the final call of the week here. Caller, you're taking us home here on the Sports Fix. What's up?
Final caller of the week, J-Rocc. How are you?
Hey, it's my buddy the mayor from Northfield. How you doing?
Okay, buddy. Hey, on a very quick personal note, how is that tough enough contest that you're in?
Oh, I'm not in anything. I mean, I just simply made a video and put it out there, and you know, if they choose to select it, I mean, they're getting millions of those things. I don't know. It is what it is, man. I mean,
I'm glad, yeah, but
I'm glad that about 10,000 people have seen it and shared it and watched it and all that stuff. So that's all I did it for, man. If it inspired some people, motivated them, that's great. Listen, man, I didn't come back last year to worry about some reality show, man. I've got bigger fish to fry, and I've got a lot bigger things coming up over the next few years. So that was fun and all that, but bro, that's just the beginning. We've only just begun to fight, my friend.
You know, you are such an inspiration. I'm a little bit above 50, and I'll leave it at that. But you have lost how much total?
I'll just say over 100 pounds. I'll
Over
just leave it at
pounds.
that, man. But you can go look on my Facebook at the pictures of me just from about a year ago or so, when I was, matter of fact, just about April of last year, just about a year ago. There's a good one of me at an event with one of our listeners here, and I just cannot even believe I'm the same person. I mean, my buddy J-Rocc came up to town last week and said, dude, you're half of the guy I saw last year. I said, I know, literally, man. So,
well,
but it's just...
Actually, I do watch all of your wrestling tapes, and the last one you did with Johnny McChesney, it was like night and day from just a couple of years ago.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I'm moving better than I have. And I mean, I'm not blowing smoke up my own butt. I've never moved this good. I'm watching tapes of me 10 years ago, 15 years ago, when I was 20 years old, and I'm going, hey, man, I move faster than that guy did. So, and you know what?
Did you ever wrestle Sabu?
I've been in the ring with him a couple of times. Yeah, Sabu's a cool guy, man. Yeah, he's all right, man. We've had some fun. Actually, I've partied with Sabu a couple of times over the years.
I can imagine a lot of people have partied with Sabu.
He's a nice guy, man. He's a good guy. He's one of the good ones, man. He's old school, but he's from Detroit, and early in my career I did a lot of stuff in Detroit, so I got to know him pretty early on.
Well, when you're trained by the original Sheik, who was his uncle, I mean, you know, that right there has to say something.
I can say that I was fortunate enough in my first few months in the business to be around some guys that were in that grouping. Anyways, his son, as a matter of fact, the original Sheik, his son is still up there running shows or whatever, doing his thing or whatnot. I don't know what he's got going on, but his son is still a part of the business. But yeah, most definitely.
Eddie
Farhat. Yeah.
Anyway, I'm just wondering what it is with these contracts that a lot of these players signed the following year, and I don't want to say that we have 3 players on our team right now that are prime examples. Swisher, Bourne, Kluber now. Kluber's 0-5. Who in their wildest dreams would have thought Kluber would be 0-5?
Well, let's not jump in the water about Corey Kluber right now. I mean, seriously, Corey Kluber will be all right, man. Statistically, he'll come back to the mean here before it's done. Matter of fact, Mike and I were just talking about that. I mean, there's a little bit of off there, but if you look at his numbers from last year to this, the difference is the run support and the way the games have played out, because he really did not pitch any better in the first 6 weeks last year than he has this year. Honestly, if you look at almost every stat, from strikeouts to walks to hits to batting average, guys are hitting about 10 points better in the batting average. And other than that, the biggest difference is a half a run on the ERA, and obviously the fact that he's 0-5 with 0-7 in games started by him. And at this point last year, he was about, I think, 2-3 or something like that. But that's the one where I'll stick up for him, because I really do believe that most of that is a function of the way the games have played. As we said, let's start back to the first game he started. I mean, imagine if the season, doesn't start to go off kilter early. I mean, it was looking fantastic early, with that first, and he lost that start. So
as tight as the Indians' budget is, obviously, and right now they're at a budget of about $85 million as far as the payroll. The Indians' problem is they have 1/3 of that total tied up in 2 contracts that they wish they didn't have.
Oh, I agree, and they know that. They know that, too.
You have $15 million in Swisher, $13 million in Bourne. That's 28 out of $85 million. That's a third of your team that's basically dead.
Seriously, think about that. That's one place where, for all the criticism that you give the front office, you have to give them some credit as well when you realize that not just now, but for the last 2 seasons, a third of their limited budget has been hijacked by some dead wood that's sitting there in the course of those guys. Imagine, seriously, how much. I guarantee you they'd have a right-handed bat with some power with that $28 million. They'd have another starter in the rotation, another $10 million guy or so with that $28 million. So, I mean, there would be some differences to this roster. That being said, they're the ones that signed these guys, although I do know that at the time they signed them, everybody said they had to do it, not just because of the players, but the perception. Nobody was coming here. I mean, that really did help them get this boat moving in the right direction. I just thought they went way too far with the commitment. They could have done that with a 2-year deal, you know?
As you and I both well know, we've always had to overpay for marginal talent simply because they don't want to come here.
And that's what we had to do right there. We had no choice. But you guys know, it's easy to hindsight now. But if anybody remembers back 3 off seasons ago when Manny Acta was out and just before the dawn of Terry Francona, where was this franchise looking to go? Nowhere good, nowhere fast. That's for sure. And it was Francona, Swisher, Bourne. It was the combination of opening up the payroll. And you got to realize, too, that part of that is those were who was available. It's maybe our bad luck that by the time, or in the offseason, that the Indians decided to open up the bank, those were the guys that were left available and that they went out there and threw their chips behind. But, without that, 2013
but if you
doesn't
recall,
happen
they were
there.
flushed with money they just got from the purchase or the selling off of their network.
I agree. I mean, I'm with you, but I mean, I just don't remember a ton. Now, I definitely said, boy, I can't believe they went 4 years here, but I know that at that time, 2013 does not happen if those guys in Francona don't all come in roughly in the same rush of guys over a month or two. And without that, we're not sitting where we are now, because that really kind of got the ball rolling in this direction. I agree with you. Look, man, I'll never be able to make sense out of giving a 4-year deal to Nick Swisher the way they did. But as you said, it's not like the Indians didn't go to him and try to get a 2-year deal, and these guys are like, hey, no, here's what we want to come to Cleveland. So, but that being said, if the back end of, that's the thing, is that this is the bad part of it, is that you have to deal with it. Mike and I were just talking about that. At what point do you realize it's dead wood? Now, I'm going to cross my fingers and hope that Nick Swisher can just be a decent designated hitter for the remainder of his career. And I think that there's at least reason to hope that may happen here, because they did take their time bringing him back. Just a designated hitter is all I'm talking about. Just somebody that can effectively hit the ball, 1 out of every 4 times that he comes up. I'll be happy with that for now, because it's better than what we've gotten from him.
But why are they giving the illusion that he can play right field? I mean, why even bother with that?
Because the only way they're going to get him in the lineup is to get him a day or two there too as well, until they've got that log jam of guys that all play right field and designated hit and can't do a whole lot else. So, they're not going to put him at first.
I dare say also another albatross with a contract, although he's at least marginal, is David Murphy at $6 million a year.
Yeah, we talk about that all the time. Murphy is what it is, and I do believe that he'll probably be one of the first people moved this summer off of this roster, no doubt about that. Especially, and I think Swisher will open that up. I mean, once he gets used to taking that, he'll be able to fill in those days that you give Murphy in right field and those at bats there. And I do think that you'll see him out because of, as Mike Brandenberry says all the time, because you've got the Bourne and the Swisher contracts, you can't have $6 million contracts on here. You got to have minimum salary guys, and you got to have big money guys. That's all you can have with a payroll like this. You cannot have $6 million guys. I think Murphy will. I mean, they had to hold him.
What do you do at third base there, J-Rocc? How many chances do we give Chisenhall?
It doesn't matter. You have to wait until Giovanni Urshela is ready. That's your third baseman of the future. It's not like you're going to go get a big free agent because, what are you waiting? Maybe one season at most before Urshela's ready to come up and play. So that's your Lindor. That's your that whole side of the infield is coming up and set. So you may just have to suffer through. I mean, at least the Indians figure out that they don't want to give him big money or whatever. It could be worse. They could have made the big commitment to him based on the first half of last year, and we could be sitting here going, now we got Lonnie Chisholm. I think having Giovanni Urshela kept them from making anything crazy like that because they said, hey, okay, cool. If he's the real deal, we'll pay him, and if not, we've got the guy coming. I mean, that should be really exciting, too. I do believe that as we've still got some of these bad contracts, man, the next couple of seasons, too, you're going to add to your core, you're going to add Urshela and Lindor over on that side of the infield, and then Jason Kipnis either continues to improve or perhaps he goes a different direction, and then maybe Ramirez ends up at second base. I mean, the next year or two, I think this roster is still going to evolve quite a bit.
I think eventually we see Kipnis playing either left or right.
Could quite possibly
field.
be, yeah. Could you imagine, by the way,
we would have signed Masterson last year?
Well, absolutely.
My God, I mean, he was asking
yeah,
for.
but be fair, Mayor. How many people were saying, and you may have been one too, how many people said, well, the cheap Dolans won't just pony up and sign their guy. Here's your hometown guy. Thank goodness at that point that we did not sign him because there were a lot of people.
Deals, yeah. Some of the best deals are the ones that are never
the ones
made.
You don't make. Exactly. Those are the best ones because that one could really be biting us in the rear end right now. I mean, imagine having Swisher born and another $70 million tied up in Justin Masterson.
Hey, do you see any type of a scenario where the Browns win 7 games this year?
Oh, absolutely. I absolutely
really?
do. Yes, absolutely. Listen, man, the Browns are the Browns as a base are in the best position that I think they've been in a long time. Yeah, they got the question marks at the quarterback position. Just the other day, I pulled out the stats. Brother, there is nobody that can convince me that even Josh McCown cannot match the mediocre stat line that the Browns got at quarterback last year. Matter of fact, I know he can because his career stats, even last year in 1-10 in Tampa Bay, his stat line was still better than what the Browns got at the quarterback position last year. I believe that the Browns have improved every position around the quarterback, and that is legit. The Browns, I believe,
what about the tight end, though? What about the tight end
they'll
position?
find a tight end here. First off, I think you can do worse than Gary Barnidge as your starting tight end. I'm sorry. I think he did an adequate job filling in last year, and I believe that whether it's Maley, whether it's Kyle Prater, I believe they've got several options here. They're gonna find a Jordan Cameron type and mix him in, but I will be fine. Not every team in the NFL has a matter of fact. I think Seattle just traded for one, but until then, they had nothing going at tight end. But several teams can make do. Not how many all-pro, big money tight ends are out there to me. And the Browns aren't losing nothing. Jordan Cameron gave us nothing last year.
Right?
So
right.
Here's my point. No. Here's all I'm saying. I'm just saying take last year's Browns and this year's Browns and tell me where they're a worse team than they were last. That's all I'm saying is tell me they're not. I think quarterback is a huge question, but they're better on the offensive line, at running back. They're better at wide receiver. Now, people may not be happy that they don't have a huge ticket wide receiver, but they're better at wide receiver than they were last year. They're better on defense than they were last year. All I'm saying is there's no reason to expect that this team is going to suck overnight because they didn't lose a bunch of free agents. Your question is quarterback, and that's going to stop you from winning 10 games, whatever, being a true playoff team. But I don't see any reason that this team cannot win the same 7 to 8 games that they won last year. And with this schedule, that's a good accomplishment right there. But I mean, you be honest and tell me where you think they're a worse team than they were last year, because I don't think they are.
Who do we have to replace? What was his name? Buster Skrine.
I think Tremont Williams is a wash for Buster Skrine, no doubt in my mind. Buster Skrine wasn't any good. I was never a Buster Skrine fan. Tremont Williams.
I was just asking
him.
who's going to replace him?
We signed Tremont Williams. He's going to be your starter. You've got Pierre Desir. You've still got Justin Gilbert, who are going to be a year advanced. And you signed some depth here in the draft. And I'm telling you, Ifo, I'm telling you now, don't think that this is just Browns media people hyping up some 7th-round draft pick, assuming that he can physically come back to the level he was 6 months ago. That guy is going to be a factor for the Browns 8 months from now when he gets back in the mix. I'm telling you, I think that Ray Farmer, to me, answered some questions to me with this draft. They may not all be all pros, but there's not a bunch of guys in here that will be out of the league in 3 years either.
I was very impressed. I was actually impressed. I would probably give him a B+, but why the reluctance to draft a stud wide receiver throughout Farmer's career here, and it's only just a couple of years, but why is he so reluctant?
I believe he's made his philosophy on that very clear, and that's why I got to say, there's a difference between not agreeing with a guy's philosophy and saying that they don't know what they're doing. To me, I don't agree with some things the Browns are doing either, but what they said they're going to do is what they're doing, which is the very definition of having a plan. When he says, I believe that we can minimize the importance of this and that and this, they're doing. What I'm saying is they're not saying one thing and doing something else. He clearly believes that the Browns and I said this before the draft, that their wide receiver core is adequate. They addressed it in their opinion. Maybe not in your opinion or mine or anybody else's. In their opinion, they added 2 quality pickups in free agency, and they addressed it there. As far as they're concerned, they did address the wide receiver position. So, I mean, and I get you, it's a passing league, but to me, maybe it's because I'm such a throwback. I dig what the Browns are trying to do, because at the end of the day, they believe that you'll find wide receivers, and you know what? Hey, nobody was looking at Antonio Brown. No, Torrey Smith. These guys were not first-round draft picks. They're first-round talent now, but these guys were third-round draft picks. These guys were found in the middle of the draft. I just believe that I kind of dig where the Browns are going. I'm a Cleveland guy, man. You build in Cleveland with a running attack and a beat-you-up defense and a beat-you-up offensive line. And I go back to what me and Wismar were saying the other day. Brian Hoyer had guys running wide open with the play-action pass last year until the running game fell apart. The Browns improved their offensive line and improved their running game. Why do you not think that they will not continue to have wide receivers getting open with that great play action, because they've got a better running game now? I think it's actually going to make McCown look better than he is. He's actually going to look better than he is because the Browns have. I mean, look, man, Duke Johnson. Bro, everybody's like, why would they draft a running back? I don't know what you think, Mayor, but last I checked, we never had a kick returner last year. Duke Johnson will instantly become your number 1 kick returner along with Benjamin. He'll be back there shoring that up, and I'm going to go so far as to say by the end of this season, Duke Johnson's going to be the starting running back for the Cleveland Browns. Not that I have any problem with Crow and West. I love those guys. I think that the Browns just got even stronger. Duke Johnson, to me, was one of the top 3 backs in the draft, and I said that the Tuesday before the draft. I love the way he catches passes out of the backfield. I love the way he blocks. He's a zone-blocking running back. He's perfect for this Brown scheme, brother.
The obvious elephant in the room is obviously the quarterback, and maybe a more sober, settled-down Johnny is a better NFL football player, Johnny.
Maybe he will be, but I'm saying, listen, I'm no Josh McCown fan, but I can promise you that he can match the production at the quarterback position that we got last year. That I am sure of, because he did it down in miserable Tampa Bay. He still was at least able to match that production level that we got at quarterback. So I don't believe we're worse, is what I'm saying. I don't believe we got better. Shoot, not at all. But I don't believe we're any worse. That's, you know what I mean?
Very, very quickly, who do you like for the game tonight? Cavs or the Bulls?
Man, I feel like a traitor if I tell you guys the Bulls, but honestly, I predicted that the Bulls would bounce back and win Game 3 and the Cavs would win Game 4. As I said earlier, I'll tell you, if the Cavs win tonight, The Cavs may win both of these games over the weekend, but I'm predicting a split. I think we come back to Cleveland tied at 2. I still say the Cavs win this series in 6 games, but I'm predicting a split over the weekend here.
You know what? I see now the Atlanta Hawks are not as good as they were. They're barely. If they survive Brooklyn, or not Brooklyn, but if they survive Toronto.
No, Washington.
Washington. They'll be lucky because they'll have done it without John Wall being in there.
That's going to change that series, absolutely.
Exactly.
I predicted Washington with the upset all the way through from the first round. I said Washington was going to be waiting in the finals for whoever the other team is that comes out. But John Wall is a difference maker. Atlanta, and I'll tell you what, that's a buddy of mine and I were talking about it last night. Cavs fans, this may sound crazy because the Hawks are the number 1 seed. That's the best thing for whoever wins, assuming it's the Cavs. But whether it's the Cavs or the Bulls, the Wizards are a much tougher beat than the Atlanta Hawks, in my opinion. I'd rather play the Hawks. But you know what? I'm not even doing that because right now I'm going to have a tough enough time trying to beat the Chicago Bulls. So I don't even care about who's next. It's going to take a lot to knock off the Bulls. So we'll see, man. It's going to be a lot of fun this weekend in Chicago. Should be some hostile.
From a very personal thing, though, I'd like to see Kendrick Perkins take Joakim Noah and just beat the shit out of him. Pardon my language.
Hey! Come on, man.
Sorry. But you know what? He's such a punk. And I'll just leave it at that, my friend.
I hear you, my man. All right, Mayor. There we go. Way to end the show. All right, my man. There you go. If you stayed till the end, you got a little bonus. I apologize for that, but live radio, it is what it is. Good stuff, Mayor, up until the end. Good stuff, you guys. Thanks to Mike Brandenberry for joining us. Thanks to Jonathan Knight, sportswriter extraordinaire. Thanks to all of you guys who have been here all week long. It's been another fantastic week here, you guys. This weekend, got the Gladiators back at the Q. Cavaliers leaving. Gladiators going to return home Saturday. Jacksonville at the Q, 7 p.m. Gladiators are 4-2 on the season. Crazy victory last week for them. In overtime, they tied it at the very last second. Jacksonville's having a terrible season. They're 1-5 heading into the Q. Gladiators looking to improve that record to 5-2 here on the season. My man Doug Plagans will be calling all of the action here on the radio, and it's on TV as well this weekend. I think the game's going to be on My 43, 7 p.m. this weekend. You got the Gladiators. Cavs, of course, Game 3 and Game 4 in Chicago. We'll find out whether Shump is able to go. Iman Shumpert, J.R. Smith back into the fold, and it should be a lot of fun. Indians have the trifecta this weekend at home as they're back at the Progressive Field. I almost called it Jacobs Field. Mike Pelfrey and Trevor Bauer tonight. Phil Hughes, Bruce Chen making his Indians debut tomorrow. 4:10 on that one Saturday. And then Sunday, the 1:10 matinee, Danny Salazar back on the mound. He'll be facing Trevor May here this weekend as the Indians look to win a series here. That would be nice. Winning back-to-back games would be nice, trying to bounce back from that loss to Kansas City last night. Full weekend of Indians, Gladiators, Cavaliers, NBA playoffs. Hell, I'll be in Erie tomorrow wrestling. For those of you guys get into the whole pro wrestling thing, Pro Wrestling Rampage tomorrow, taking on John McChesney for the heavyweight championship. You can find out more about that on our Hey, follow me on Facebook there. All the information out there. Pro Wrestling Rampage in Erie. And I'll be back here, assuming I'm in one piece, live, same bad time, same bad channel, noon, baby. You know where, you know when, right here across the Sports Fix Radio Network. We love you, Cleveland and beyond. Have a great weekend. Have some fun, and be back here with us. We'll be back with you noon Monday here on The Fix.
Nothing pretty, so much hate up in this itty bitty city. If you can make it here, you can make it anywhere. Put your hands up in the air, everybody say yeah.